Hello, everybody, and welcome to the MinnMax Show, a place about games, friends, and getting better. I'm Ben Hansen, and I want to thank you all for being here. I'm joined by Jeff Marchiafava.
Hello.
I'm joined by Janet Garcia.
Hello.
I just realized introducing people on a podcast is an inherently weird thing to do. They just say hello. And then Kyle Hilliard.
Hey, what's up? Hey, I got a new hoodie.
Oh, nice.
YouTube proud.
Cool,
nice.
man. Yeah, if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app, you can always check us out on YouTube or vice versa. This is a big show. This is the type of show that I have to strap myself into my chair for because this is a juggernaut. We are talking about the big news of the week. Microsoft has purchased Activision Blizzard. We're going to try to wrap our minds around that one. Jeffem, I'm counting on you to be super smart when talking about that, please.
No.
Great. We're also going to be talking about Nobody Saves the World, the new action RPG from Drinkbox, which I'm very excited to talk about. Then we'll be joined by Kelsey Lewin from the Video Game History Foundation, and we'll be talking, of course, about Mother 3 and other Game Boy Advance RPGs that we want to talk about, damn it. Then back half of the show, Sarah Pazorski is joining us, and we're going to be answering a bunch of great community questions submitted over there on Patreon. All right, let's dive into this sucker. Jeff, I want your version. I want your version of reality. Walk me through you seeing the news about Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard on Tuesday.
Well, it started with me looking at my phone and Hansen saying, hey, do you want to record a special podcast about the Activision Microsoft news? And I was like, oh, God, what happened now? And then I looked it up and...
You said, oh, God, what's happened now?
I scrolled through some stuff, read about it, and I guess the first thing I thought was like, 68 billion? Is there like is there going to be a 2021 discount in there for how much they're paying for that? Or is that counting everything that's happened in the past year?
So they're buying out every share, at $95? So it's kind of a bump up from where they're at now. But just for zooming out a little bit, everybody, if you haven't heard the news, Microsoft, they make the Xbox. They purchased Activision Blizzard. So Microsoft now owns Call of Duty, Warcraft.
Which somehow, like, when I was thinking about it, it was like, okay, Microsoft buys Activision Blizzard. That's big news, certainly. Yeah. Somehow it feels like if the headline had just been Activision buys Call of Duty, it seems even bigger to me. And then you think, oh yeah, Activision also buys World of Warcraft, and Activision buys Overwatch and Diablo and a million other franchises. Pitfall?
This is why it's such a juggernaut. It's the type of news that comes along a couple times a lifetime, if you're following gaming news. Just one of those like, what? Like, we all freaked out about the Bethesda news from 2020, and now that's a laugh. That would be, just a tiny sliver of this overall discussion here, because this is so gigantic. And like you mentioned, Jeff, this is $68.7 billion, 10,000 employees. Kyle, how are you feeling about this? What was your gut reaction?
I mean, it was definitely like, my alarm went off, normally, and I was just like, before I get out of bed, let me see what's going on in the world. And it was like a weird jolt of like coffee or something where I was just like, well, that woke me up. That is bizarre. That is insane.
And then it's just like an entire day of continuing to chew on it, at least for me, of still just thinking, we're like, oh my God, then what about this? I tweeted out last night, but it's like, it's so insane that Tim Schafer and Bobby Kotick are now coworkers. Like Beefcake submitted a comment here in Patreon and he said, Double Fine presents Tony Hawk's American Wasteland 2. John Ricciardi said World of Minecraft. It's just like, oh my God, it is so insane thinking about all the stuff that Microsoft now owns. It's everything.
Yeah. And then sort of secondary reaction is like, is this a good thing? And like on a consumer level, feels like a positive, right? Like Game Pass will grow even more.
It's a tricky one, right?
Everything outside of that, I feel like is like asterisks, and like I don't know if that's better. I don't know if that's good news,
Yeah, so we sent out a Twitter poll just asking, is this a good thing? 37.6 of people said yes. 39.7% of people said no. If you want to be, shallow about it, but realistic for people out there, it's like, well, that means a lot more games are coming to Game Pass. That means, hey, probably at some point, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, which Xbox now owns. That'll be coming to Game Pass. All of these Activision games, all of the Call of Duty games at some point are probably going to drop in the most ridiculous Game Pass drop of all time. On the flip side,
when is Game Pass going to cost more?
That's exactly the question, right? We had
my brother was, he's heavy into Xbox at this moment. And he's always joking about Team X. He's not actually into the console war stuff, but just as a gaff. And he's like, man, I need to buy 6 years of Game Pass Ultimate, please. And I'm like, just watch the shit. And that's kind of my advice for that deal. Look for sales and just I got 6 months for him for Christmas for the price of 3 months. But yeah, there's no way it's going to stay that. I'd be shocked if it stays that price for much longer, especially looking at Netflix's, they say the Netflix of gaming. You know what Netflix also has? Gone up in the last 7 years from $7 for the mid-tier Netflix to now it's $16.
Right. Yeah. And so, the sale's not going through until fiscal year 2023. So there's still some room, but maybe they'll keep it at 15 for a while and then slowly start to ratchet up and fall into that classic trap of what are you going to do? Not have unlimited access to all of these games? It's still, even if they up it at that point, it's still probably going to be a hell of a deal, even if it goes up to 20. Huge. My first reaction was well, there goes all of Phil Spencer's goodwill. I feel like he has done a masterful job over the last decade at this point, at least 5 years, of really being okay, yeah, he's a corporate guy, but he seems to understand where gamers are coming from most of the time. He plays games. He's cool. And now the fact that he's hitching his wagon to the Bobby Kotick.
Playing Molasses Flood.
What's that?
I said he got mad at me once because I hadn't played Molasses Flood.
That's a hardcore gamer. I wouldn't even get mad at you about that, Kyle.
Did you play Molasses Flood?
No, I never did. I'm not going to do what Phil.
Why have you still okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't, sorry to cut you out. It was just a funny thing where he was talking about Molasses Flood with this small group of journalists, and none of us had played it, and he was like, "You guys are all professional video game people. I've played Molasses Flood. You guys haven't played Molasses Flood yet?" And I was like, "I'm sorry."
Yeah.
Maybe if you guys said codes earlier, we'd be able to find the time. But just thinking out loud.
Hang on, Molasses Flood is the name of the developer, right?
What was the game?
What was that game? The first one about going down the river?
Something Flood, right?
That should be the next poll on MinnMax's Twitter. Have you played Molasses Flood? If you know, you know.
Yeah, Flame in the Flood from Molasses Flood.
Oh, yeah, y'all haven't played Molasses Flood? That's a little surprising. I didn't beat it or anything, but I booted it up.
We all booted it up.
That was 2 years ago, though.
So, more games on Game Pass, plus side. Downside, obviously. Hey, competition's good. And when one company in the great video games arms race just says, yeah, we'll just go ahead and buy everybody. There's nothing really you can do about it, everybody else. This is going to get just bizarre and lopsided and uneven and a little bit scary. It is just, if they do something which I would consider to be inevitable of just, hey, now Call of Duty is exclusive. Now Overwatch 2 is exclusive. That's game over.
I think with those games, they're so contingent on having a wide player base. I was talking to my boyfriend about this in the kitchen yesterday, just randomly doing a podcast while eating pizza. But I was he's Call of Duty is Call of Duty because of its massive player base, and to get rid of that seems like you're cutting into your own money that you invested in by doing something like that. Now I think with Starfield and stuff where people were is that going to be exclusive? I think that made sense because it's a single player experience. It's essentially, if they're lucky, the next Fallout. If they were able to have something as massively successful of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're just kind of different things. So I don't think we'd see that. I think the most we'd see would be, Call of Duty currently has a nice setup with PlayStation in terms of this comes early to PlayStation. There might be demo or early access or little weekend buffs or what have you. I think we'll see stuff like that associated with Game Pass. You'll see more, the more privileged experience of Call of Duty will be on Xbox now, as it used to be on PlayStation the years prior, is what my guess would be for that.
Yeah, and there is some reporting that it's going to be that kind of bonus thing, basically what PlayStation has. Microsoft had the Call of Duty big collaboration for years and years before it switched over to PlayStation, so it's going to be kind of going back to that. At the same time, I don't know. Like, I think so. Their messaging officially is, here we go. Let's see, where is this? So according to Bloomberg, Phil Spencer says, I'll just say to players out there who are playing Activision Blizzard games on Sony's platform, it's not our intent to pull communities away from that platform, and we remained committed to that. So it's that weird wording where it's like, hey, you could be clear if you wanted to. You could be clear in saying Call of Duty will remain multi-platform. The fact that they're not saying that, and they said so much similar stuff about Elder Scrolls when they purchased Bethesda and everybody freaking out. And now, I mean, the wording is still a little bit confusing, but it certainly seems like Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be a PC and Xbox exclusive. So they could be clear. Why they're not being clear, I think is clear, which is that if they say Call of Duty and all of Blizzard stuff and Crash Bandicoot and Spyro and everything is going to be exclusive to Xbox, good luck Sony. I think PlayStation is bleeding.
Yeah, you're definitely not going to say that until you have to, which is going to be, well, the deal doesn't go through till 2023.
Yeah.
And then you got to make another Call of Duty that you're going to hold off on people. It's like the underlying thing of all of this. I feel like there must be a secret lesson in business class that like tells people how to actually evaluate the money for big deals like this. Because if you broke this down into grade school math and you were like, hey, I just spent $68 and now I own 3 things that are each worth $1. Like that just sounds terrible. And like that's what Phil Spencer's quote was like we now own 3 billion-dollar franchises or $1 trillion, whatever it was. And it's like none of this math makes any sense to me. And I don't know like how, and that gets to Janet's thing of like, well, yeah, okay, Call of Duty's worth $1 billion or whatever. What happens if you chop off a third of that revenue because you want people, or is Game Pass just that important to them that, they'll take whatever losses they would get from Sony in the future?
I think so.
The idea of like, you don't have to make Call of Duty exclusive to like get financial benefits. Like one, the fact that you own it, you're like, go ahead, buy it wherever. We're still making money off of that is one. And then 2, if you had Call of Duty on like Game Pass, for instance, that's still enough of an appeal point that could get people to make the switch and or invest in Game Pass in an era that they might not have previously. Like it's still a huge like win in that regard. Like you don't necessarily need to make that one exclusive. I do think for the single player stuff, like you probably would see like exclusives or at least Windows or something. Like I can't imagine them making like a new Crash game, and I'd be surprised if that was multi-plat, like if they did end up even doing that. But which is so weird. But
it's so bizarre to think about.
That's how it is. I was like, I texted Blessing. I'm like, this is why Crash lost the character bracket for best PlayStation character. You're not even here anymore. Where are you? Right? Like, you lasted like 3 more months after that.
Yeah, but like on the flip side of that, like I remember talking to Matt Booty, who's the head of studios over there at Xbox, about Double Fine and the acquisition of Double Fine. And he said something surprising in that interview where he said that like, after Psychonauts 2, like I still think Double Fine's games will be multi-platform. Because it feels like it's just that type of studio that we want that to hit as many people as possible. And maybe they're thinking we'll have change, but that was another weird one where it's like, okay, so it's just a case-by-case basis which ones will be exclusive and which ones won't. So it's even tougher to try and predict what they're thinking for the future.
I don't think there's a world where Call of Duty is exclusive. I think that's kind of absurd.
5 years from now? 5 years from now, you don't think it's exclusive? I think it's absolutely exclusive within 5 years.
I don't think so. If they didn't make Minecraft exclusive, they're not going to make Call of Duty exclusive.
Yeah.
I think, but with Minecraft, there's not a new game that they're marketing each and every year. And maybe they'll slow this down and change up the development for Call of Duty, because it's definitely, they've been sprinting for a long time releasing these Call of Duty games every single year. But over the last several years, they've started to stumble, and it feels like they're like managing to get them out the door, but it's struggling a little bit. Starting with, Black Ops Cold War.
Just the ill will they would garner from doing that just wouldn't be worth it. People would be so mad. Like,
I think people
would be more ill will than making Elder Scrolls exclusive.
Yeah, exactly.
Or any of Bethesda's games.
I think
Call of Duty is so much more like mainstreamed than like Elder Scrolls. Like there are people who play Call of Duty that have never heard of Elder Scrolls. I think.
was the best.
But I think that almost
none of us in this room played it. Like,
Kyle, if you want to make a point, fix your mic.
I think the mainstream thing though kind of works in their favor. That 5 years from now you could be like, hey, play the new Call of Duty. It's on Xbox, and people are and the mainstream people are gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna go buy an Xbox and I'm gonna play the one game that I play every year. And I doubt they have the same kind of like weird team loyalty that very hardcore gamers do.
Yeah, I mean, it's anecdotal, but like Dan Riker was talking about, he's talking to a coworker about just yesterday, they said they wanted to get a console. Which one should they get? And it's like, I guess you just have to get Xbox at this point. Like, if you care at all about these big franchises, you just cannot ignore it. And, I had friends texting me like, why would Activision do this? And just, like you mentioned the sales of Vanguard, Kyle, like the best-selling games for the last, from 2010 to 2019, the best-selling games of the year, 10 of those were Call of Duty games. It's just absurd. And the best-selling game by year, it's like, okay, 2007 is Guitar Hero 3, which is strange, but like, okay, there's an Activision game. Then it was Rock Band. Then 2009, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Then Halo Reach. Then Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Then Call of Duty Black Ops. Then Grand Theft Auto 5. Then Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. Then Call of Duty Black Ops 3. Then Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. Then Call of Duty World War 2. I mean, it just does not stop with the number of sales here. And of course, Microsoft's messaging, which people like to dunk on New York Times for explaining this in their tweet about it. But like Microsoft's messaging in that post is, hey, everybody, this acquisition will accelerate the growth in Microsoft's gaming business across mobile, PC, console, and cloud, and will provide building blocks for the metaverse. And then Satya Nadella, the chairman and CEO of Microsoft, says, gaming is the most dynamic and exciting category in entertainment across all platforms today and will play a key role in the development of metaverse platforms. So you talk about like funny money, Jeffem. It is, somebody, I forget who it was, somebody tweeted that like metaverse is just the stock go upward. And I do think there's something about it. It's like, okay, what seems to be the trends in the tech space? We have billions of dollars to spend. Seems like metaverse. Okay, that's something to do with gaming. How can we secure our place in the future? For clearly gaming is going to be an important part of the future. All right, how much money do we have to spend? Whatever. Here's $70 billion, lock it down. And then they win.
Yeah. I'm surprised he didn't just start shouting NFT, in the middle of that. It's like...
Yeah, I also pulled people on Twitter, MinnMax followers there, and asked who has the strongest first party now, assuming that this deal goes through and there's not antitrust stuff, which Jason Schreier out there on Twitter was like, maybe that'll come up, but I don't think there's still other gaming companies out there, Tencent and whatnot. It'd be tough to argue this is a monopoly in that sense. But anyways, who has the strongest first party poll? Microsoft wins it now, 40.7%. Then Sony with 31, then Nintendo with only 27, which I thought was surprisingly low for.
I was thinking that too.
I was trying to think without personal bias, I still think Nintendo has a really strong argument just in terms of like notoriety and like knowability of their characters and things like that. Like Mario's going to go a lot further than Call of Duty just in terms of like being known around the world. Yeah,
but what does the Mario metaverse really look like? I don't understand it. So therefore, how good can it be? We had Burton. It's coming. Burton Cognito submitted a question over on Patreon and said, is it time for us to stop mentally pairing Sony and Microsoft as competitors and begin viewing Sony more along the lines of Nintendo? A rich IP holder, but not a multi-trillion-dollar software company with all the motivation in the world to swallow up the gaming industry.
No.
No? Why is that?
No.
Because we're having this conversation, number one. Like, I think it's funny because, people will rarely admit that they're wrong, on the internet, obviously. But I was having this conversation with my boyfriend yesterday where I'm like, on PS I Love You, which is kind of funny, PlayStation podcast that I do over there. People are always complaining in the comments about, why do you guys bring up like Game Pass? Or you bring up the Nintendo? Like, why do you bring up these other things? Like, it has nothing to do with this is a PlayStation podcast. And obviously, like, I just ignore that because it's nonsense. But those same people, hey, what do you guys think of Activision? I thought it had nothing to do with us. It does. The fact is it does because it's the same market. And when you have friends ask you casually, what should I get? The question is PlayStation or Xbox. Like no one really brings up Nintendo. Like you get Nintendo if you want Nintendo. The only person asking Nintendo, PlayStation, or Xbox is maybe a child who literally only gets to have one console and they do have to think of all three. But for the most part, like no one's really asking that. Like if they're asking about the Switch, it's should I get a Switch or not, or should I wait or not? Not do I get Nintendo or PlayStation? They're so different. Like because it's going to remain that way because for as long as you can play so many of those games multi-platform. Like until, depending on what Microsoft does with their like most recent acquisitions and their acquisitions in general, there's yet to be a big conversation on, oh, well, if you want to play Activision Blizzard games, you need Xbox. If that happens, then I think they're still going to be compared though, because so many games, like when games come out right now, if they're on everywhere, it's Microsoft and PlayStation. Sometimes they're on Switch. Like you'd have to mention if it's on Switch. Like there's so many releases I see where I'm like, oh, it's on everything except Switch, but you know, stuff's never on Switch. That's always how I couch it. That until they don't have those things in conversation, they're always going to be paired together because they are like very directly competing because they have the same kind of games you can play on both of them for the most part. And there are some exclusives like, you know, the Halos, The Last of Us, stuff like that.
Right.
We'll see if Microsoft is going to actually beef up their exclusives with this acquisition, or are they just going to be making more money off of stuff, which is like a different conversation. Like, I don't care who's making money off of what. I'm trying to figure out where I'm playing my games and what I should invest in.
Yeah. And I mean, Nintendo has chosen to live in like their little walled garden of we're only going to make.
But Sony is being pushed into that same walled garden. I think is an interesting idea.
Yes, but
it's not a choice. It's not like Sony is saying, "Hey, we don't want third-party games." I'm sure their hair's on fire over there, and they're scrambling around to figure out what they're going to do. But that has to be like a really deliberate choice, I think, in order to say, okay, well, Sony just does their own thing now. Like there's always going to be more developers rising up from, you know, kind of that like AA indie space to become bigger, you know, better developers and making these kind of games. And I'm sure Sony's still going to want them on their platforms as long as the hardware is comparable, like Janet was saying. That opportunity is always going to be there for third-party developers, and nothing about what Sony has done at this point is saying that they're not interested in trying to continuing to court those different companies.
They're going to continue to try for sure. And I'm not saying Sony's dead in the water completely, but like this could be damaging 10 years from now to the PlayStation brand. It is going to be a big deal. It's such a weird
thing, and I think it was mentioned on our Slack that like just in the past year, like. So you have Activision and you have Bethesda's games now on Game Pass, but you also have EA Play and you also have Ubisoft Plus.
Yeah.
It's like what isn't on Game Pass at this point? And I'm sure it's only a matter of time. There have already been rumors that Sony is going to revamp, you know, PlayStation Plus and make it into some kind of service that's going to offer more games in this way.
What is the code name for that again, Janet? What is that?
Remember?
What is the code name?
It's called Spartacus.
Spartacus, yes.
Also, a quick clarification. Game Pass does not have Ubisoft Plus. Xbox will have Ubisoft Plus. Ubisoft Plus is Ubisoft's Game Pass, essentially. So it's like $15. You get access to all their games. So they don't currently have the relationship they have with EA Play, which EA Play's relationship on Game Pass is also not a holistic relationship. It allows you X amount of hour access. Basically, it's free EA Play, and free EA Play is very nerfed. It's not like you get FIFA for free. It's like you get 8 hours of FIFA for free unless you have an EA Play subscription. So just to clarify, because people were excited about Ubisoft being rolled into Game Pass. I think that could still happen, but currently they're talking about bringing that service to console as it's only on PC right now.
Yeah.
Right.
So Bobby Kotick, everybody's least favorite person in the game industry, he put this in perspective a little bit because there's rumors that, they were talking to Facebook. He mentioned maybe even like combining with EA, but it seemed like Activision was looking to sell. So Bobby Kotick had this quote here to VentureBeat where he said, I think like you'd think, oh, we're this big company and have great resources. But when you're comparing Activision to, $2 trillion companies and $3 trillion companies and $1 trillion companies and 4,500 billion companies, you realize we may have been a big company in video gaming, but now when you look at the landscape of who the competitors are, it's a different world today than ever before. Which is a jumbled way of saying, yeah, they seem like a big deal, but when we're dealing with the Amazons and Googles of the world, even he was thinking that they couldn't survive. So it's time to be absorbed. The thing that I still can't wrap my mind around, obviously this was in the works for a very long time, but with Activision Blizzard in the back half of last year just getting raked through the coals, and even Phil Spencer getting out there early and saying, we're examining every aspect of our relationship with Activision after these accusations and reports, then the idea that this acquisition happens. So it must have been in the works before Phil Spencer came out and made that comment, right? Like, is there any world where they're going out and making that comment to continue to sink the stock price so they can buy this company for cheaper? That's the part that I don't understand.
Well,
Made him go like, maybe I should take a look at them. Maybe I should reevaluate our relation.
I don't know.
well, also, if I'm remembering correctly, I'm pulling up articles now. He never publicly made that comment.
That's true. That is
to be
true.
clear. He made it to his staff. And I think when those like kind of comments were going around with like, okay, Xbox said this to their staff and Nintendo said this to their staff, like the thing that made the Xbox One stand out is the idea of like evaluating all aspects of the relationship, because it sounded a lot more dramatic than everyone who's just like, hey, like we, don't agree with harassment. We want to make sure that we don't have that here. Like he kind of had a more extreme statement, but everyone had like that energy, which I think is appropriate and what you would expect from a workplace, because like, yeah, all your workers are thinking about this. You absolutely should be doing that as management. However, I think we all know from having existed in the world that just because your job says something doesn't really mean anything. Like I've heard stuff at work all the time that, oh, that sounds good or great, but isn't really, it's hollow stuff. It's just, it sounds good. And it's like, yeah, like, I want to make sure that it's like, do you, or are you just saying something that sounds nice?
Right.
And that's not to accuse Phil of being disingenuous with his staff or in that email specifically. But when I heard that news, it was very much like, it's good to hear. We will see. And that one was weird because it was like, oh, well, are they thinking of doing something more dramatic? So then for that to end up being, an acquisition, I think just is really a reminder that at the end of the day, it's a business and the business is about money. And if good human things happen, that's often a happy consequence, not an intention. And if financial L's are taken for the better of people, it's often for future financial prosperity.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of my read. But I think that was a really big talking point for sure with this acquisition, where it's like, oh, I guess you were evaluating to be with them. That's
Partner
kind of
even
weird.
closer.
And like, yeah.
It's bizarre. Yeah. And so there are reports. New York Times has a quote from Bobby Kotick where he says, post-close of the acquisition, I will be available as needed. And it certainly seems as the more reporting comes out that once this thing closes, that Microsoft's going to say, all right, hit the bricks. But he also has that clause in his contract where whenever Bobby Kotick leaves, he gets like, what, $200 million or something. It's like, it's just... No matter what, he's making a lot of bank from this sucker.
That's CEOs in general. We've seen our certain CEOs make tons of money after doing absolutely nothing but destroy companies in the past as well. It's like every CEO leaves with a golden parachute, and I won't necessarily blame Microsoft if Bobby Kotick ends up making a bunch of money if they actually kick him out. I'll just be happy if they actually kick him out.
Yeah,
and
for
replace him with someone. And that was part of kind of everything that I was mulling over in my brain yesterday about this deal. It's like, well, like Activision and Blizzard had been off my radar basically because of all of these problems with their company. It's like that those companies are just foobar at this point because of their leadership. And if Microsoft does buy them and make substantial changes, like I certainly hadn't been seeing any of those changes take place when all of these stories have been coming out. It was clear that Bobby Kotick was staying in that position. This seems like one of the few opportunities where we could see big changes if Microsoft wants to make them. And I guess I'm cautiously hopeful that they would. As much as you can believe in any corporation that would be willing to make those changes, I guess I would hope that they would.
Yeah, there are weird potentials for silver linings here. Even stuff like Blizzard. You hear for so long outside of even the reports of harassment and just a terrible work environment for a lot of folks in those studios. You hear so many reports about Activision culture encroaching on Blizzard culture over the last 5 years, right? And the idea is like, oh, maybe this would stop that. Maybe the Activision culture creep would stop because now would be a Microsoft culture creep. And so far, in this era of Microsoft, from all reporting, it seems like they've been pretty hands-off with studios and letting them retain their own culture. So maybe in some way, this could be a new flowering for Blizzard if everybody gets their act together in the right way and changes leadership, right? But who knows?
Yeah, I mean, that's the optimistic view.
Right? Yes, still a million questions to go. Like, are we going to get
People
that?
will lose their jobs. It's just going to happen, right? There's going to be redundancy. That's just going to, right? Is that just an assumption, or do you think they're hands off enough that they'll be safe?
Microsoft has very much been hands off. When they buy like Double Fine or something like that, it's you certainly get the sense that their messaging is like, we like the crazy things that you're doing, just keep on doing them, but we'll be signing your paychecks now. And I feel like with Activision and Blizzard, this could be one place where Microsoft is like, man, we could do a lot with Call of Duty now that we own it. Like, if it feels like a place where they could step in and kind of be more of a managing force, especially because it feels like both companies need it at this point.
Yeah. Wild times. We'll be talking about this for a long time, but goodbye debate for biggest news of the year for the end of the year for the MinnMax Awards. That's just a slam dunk right now. Hey, in other world, Nobody Saves the World came out on Tuesday, and I feel so bad that it just got completely annihilated by this news and no one was talking about it because this juggernaut of news hit. But this is the new game from Drinkbox Studios, who made the Guacamelee series, Tales from Space, Severed. We've all been playing it, yes.
Yes.
Yes. I adore this game. I have not been as addicted to a game as I am to Nobody Saves the World since Stardew Valley. Like, this game just grabbed me by the jugular. Like, genuinely, if I would have played this last year somehow, it would have been in my top 3 for games of the year. It is, if like God of War doesn't release this year and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 doesn't release this year, like, I think it could take my game of the year. I love Nobody Saves the World.
I thought you were going to say, like, if God of War combined with, like, something else. I'm like, where's he going with this? Like,
no.
I'm like, oh, should I play a different game? No, I also loved it. It's kind of funny because, like, right where it's January 19th at the time of recording this. So obviously not much has come out, but currently game of the year, right? But it is honest, genuinely, like, the first thing that I've been excited about this year, but frankly also like the most recent thing I've been excited about in a little while, which that's kind of not that interesting of a take because I play like an insane amount of games. Right. But that being said, I'm also, I'm dipping into a lot of stuff, and this is the first thing that's grabbed me of the last things that I've tried out. But what's everyone else's general read on it?
I want to hear more about why you like it so much, Hanson, because I'm going to sound very negative, which I do not mean to be at all, but my reaction was like, oh, this is nice. Like, I was just like, fine. I don't really like switching characters. I'd rather just play as a singular character.
Oh my God.
What are you talking about? Okay, so
that's just in general. I mean, across the board, I don't like switching characters in video games. I like to really focus on one character and really get to know them, which is maybe why this isn't clicking for me. Maybe it's just not going to be my kind of game, which is fine. But I want to know. I was surprised to hear how head over heels you were.
Oh my God!
I would love to.
I think a certain amount of it too is just going in completely blind for this thing. Like, got a code early. Sure, I'll boot this thing up. Okay, seems to be like some Zelda style action RPG, Zelda Diablo fusion. Okay, got it. And then I can transform into a rat. That's interesting. Oh, now there's a path to unlock all of these other bizarre characters. You can turn into a horse, you can turn into an egg, turn into a magician, turn into a bodybuilder, turn into a dragon. Just like, and the fact that you're unlocking the ability with progression to get more and more of these characters, and then where it sunk the knife into me is, okay, now you can swap abilities and traits from any characters to any other characters to make this build. That's when I just was like, all right, well, now I just need to sit on my couch for the entire weekend and blast through this game because, my God, it is a masterclass of progression and unlocks. Where it's like, it's just unlocking things, fulfilling quests, whatever. Play any Ubisoft game. There's a million quests. What's the big deal? But the way this game doles that out, as the developer Drinkbox mentioned in a new interview, just having constant little hits of dopamine of like, all right, you unlock this, you got this, think of this potential. It is just, it is damn near the perfect game in my mind. Like, seriously, I just am nuts over this thing. Jeff, this seems like your type of game since you like Diablo so much.
Yeah, I have only unlocked like half a dozen characters so far.
Yeah.
And certainly not the ability to switch abilities between them.
Okay.
But yeah, I guess I'm somewhere in between you and Kyle, or maybe I am where Janet is at this point. Like it's fun and it's cool, and I like switching to different characters in order to use very specific abilities in kind of that Metroid way where it's like, okay, there's a small hole here. I can't get into it, but now I can turn into a rat, so therefore now I can go through this
and
area.
like the more that you go
using
on,
the different abilities like that.
Yeah, and it's really fun that they have different quests and objectives in the overworld of like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like, this slug says that his wife's dead and he's sad, and that's a quest. I was like, what am I supposed to do?
Yeah, okay. So I think this game's great. That's what I rated on my scale. I did a formal review of it. I gave it a 4 out of 5. I have a 5-point scale on Pentapixels.
Interesting.
And I loved it. I think they really did execute, to what Hansen mentioned on what their goal. It's funny because I wrote the review and I tried to really, always write that like in very much isolation. So I didn't look at any of the other stuff. And then when I was done, I was looking at like either the Steam page or like one of their like the Xbox page, I think. And they mentioned like themselves about how good they are at like handling grind. And I'm like, oh, they're so aware of what they did well here. And I feel like that's very clear in the construction of the game. So for me, what I really love about it is the way that progression functions, like the way I wrote about it in my review, is the way the progression functions essentially as Russian nesting dolls in terms of what you have. So you have like the smallest progression is a quest related to your build. So it'd be something as simple as, oh, you unlock the rat, bite 15 enemies, and then boom, you get some progression from that. Progression, basically, without getting too into the weeds, you have a couple different like ways that you progress in the game. You have leveling up your character in terms of grade. They all started at F and they can go all the way up to S. With each grade, you get like more abilities unlocked. And then with certain grades, you move up the character tree, essentially, is like the big combat progression. And then within all that, you have like XP that levels you up for like, oh, I can now take on different areas more comfortably. And you also get stars that help open the door. So those are like kind of the layers of progression, which all sounds like kind of complicated on paper, but it works really well in practice because it's all kind of happening at the same time in the background.
Right.
To the point where like I personally never, and I did this all co-op, online co-op, there's no local, but I never felt like, oh man, I'm underleveled, I have to go somewhere and intentionally grind. It was just, okay, let me go ahead and deal with, let me do some other quests. Like, what's the next dungeon I can do? What's the nearest dungeon level? Okay, well, let me I have this character now, let me go back. And as far as the quest lines with the NPCs, what I really love about this game is the way they really got all the juice out of the orange of forms. So they took that form mechanic of you can shapeshift into a rat, a horse, whatever. And they're like, what all can we do with this? And on one hand, they have the combat really functions like puzzle solving, where the solution is what your build is for a certain object, like a certain dungeon, because they all have like modifiers and things on there.
Right.
Or for like the little quest lines with the NPCs, you have like these sort of puzzles. So like the one Hansen brought up was you meet this slug who's like, oh, my wife died. So ridiculous. Oh, my wife died. I need the slug who can, like, basically a necromancer slug or something, but they didn't say it like in that phrasing. And I was just trying to figure out, I'm like, okay, well, maybe there's a necromancer you can unlock. Maybe it's the necromancer. And then I'm like, I have a slug, but then the slug didn't have anything. And eventually I figured out the combo of, oh, they wanted me to like spec in this certain way. And then I can sort of embody this character.
Yeah, it does such a good,
it's just super fun.
Yeah, it does such a good job of motivating you to try out all these different things. And some of it's, from dungeons having specific conditions, or like, okay, this dungeon, all the enemies have, what is it called? It's basically a shell of like dark type. They have to be hit once with this.
Ward.
Yes, a ward. You have to hit them once with this type of move, and then you can hit them with anything else. So it's like, okay, every character I would unlock, I'm like, I don't want to use this weirdo. The bodybuilder, no good. But like, it gets you to try out everybody, and you end up liking basically the ghost. I'm still a little. Maybe there's a world where I could really get into that ghost.
Oh no, the ghost is good. You gotta hold down A and you just kind of like. So the thing to that point too, and to Kyle, to your point, because I can relate to, and that's definitely like. Well, at the end of the day, like, I don't really care, like, who, but I'm not related to this game. I'm just a critic who's like, I like this game and it's good, I think people should play it. But I do worry that, like, folks were here, oh, I have to try all these different characters. I don't want to do that. And Kyle, if that's you, that's fair. However, what I think really works well for this is, yes, they force you to try out characters. And I will say there are a few that flopped for me. Like I never clicked with the zombie, it didn't really work out for me with a few other ones. But what it does that's really awesome is even when you are playing a character that maybe you don't want to stick with and you don't end up gravitating towards, it sometimes gives you like a combo that like sparks something for you. So like for me, like I wasn't that interested in the monk nor the monk's abilities, but I had a quest line as the necromancer that was like, oh, have a +3 attack buff and use like the monk's holy light. And I was like, okay, that seems like super difficult to pull off, but I want this XP, so sure, let me do it. And then I'm like, holy cow, this is a really good move. I never would have thought of this combination. And I like that it sort of is very directly teaching you about the ways that you can combine and get creative. And some of those really work. And I never would have done it on my own because I'm also, maybe not as extreme as you, Kyle, but I also kind of feel like I find the thing that works and why change it, right? Let's just I'm having fun. Let's just stick with that. But I end up having more fun than I would have had on my own. And I think the game facilitating that fun through its construction is what makes it so smart.
Yeah. And like you say, you don't like the zombie, but where it really clicks is like, okay, the zombie has an attack, or if you attack an enemy, then when they die, they turn into a zombie, which turns into a little buddy for you, a little friendly.
But that's just like the little, what's the name of the familiars. That's basically
the familiars. Yeah, but then it's like, oh my God, I had so much fun in this game, but then making a build where it was all about familiars, where it's like, all right, I'm going to have the magician pulling out all of these freaks, the zombie biting everybody, so everybody that dies turns into familiar for me, and then you get the ability to raise the dead with the necromancer, and so I'm just raising these demons, and then like there were boss fights where it's just the entire screen is just like, brrr, like it looks like the end of like a cookie clicker.
At a certain point.
No, it's amazing. It's so good.
You sense what you're doing. And what's dope too about this is like this, and like it's really a game like all about synergy with your build and your abilities. And what becomes so much more fun is when you do take it on co-op. It's also easier co-op because then someone dies and you don't have to restart because like as long as someone else stays alive, you can respawn. But I loved playing this co-op and did the whole thing co-op because it becomes so much deeper because now it's like there's the synergy with me and my build, but there's also what my partner's doing and how we can work to inform each other where it's like, okay, well, maybe we both shouldn't be like, melee focused. Maybe I'm going to do the range stuff and you're going to do this. Or like there's different, as Ben mentioned, like wards or shields that enemies have. So sometimes, when the benefit of playing co-op too is like, I wouldn't have to have a build or be ready to like swap character. Like I didn't have to swap during combat as much because I played co-op. So I'm like, I go into an area and I'm like, I pick somebody and then my partner has like someone that kind of complements that, or we kind of know what's going on with each other and can kind of work together in that way and just annihilate everything. So you do end up being a little bit OP, I think, co-op, but like I'm good with that. I want to breeze through. I want to have fun and figure things out. So it was really good.
It's weird there's no local co-op. Maybe they'll add it eventually.
I really want. I'm like local co-op imported to PS5. Like that's what I'm hoping will happen.
Right.
And I will say with the online one sticking point for me, which I think is so weird, they don't let you get too far from each other. Like they do that thing that they do in local co-op where if you're too far, you like die.
Oh, interesting.
But I'm like, why? I have different screens. Like, isn't that the point of having the different screens?
That
but
is,
and I'm not a developer, but
there's probably some reason.
Yeah, definitely like a small gripe. But there were some things I didn't like about it, though. I will say especially towards like that mid to end section, I think one issue it runs into is trying to ping pong around the map to like I liked what I have to do to get my like quest and my XP. Like doing the quest is fun, doing the dungeons is fun, exploring the world is fun. However, setting yourself up to do those actions can be kind of a pain because there are load screens, not super long, I'm on a Series X, in between the bigger areas. And they do have fast travel, but it is Link's Awakening remake fast travel, which I feel like is not good enough. It is where you're going from one teleport to another one, which can be good enough if you have enough teleporters. But there were a lot of times where I'd walk over to do a quest line. Now it's like, okay, let me walk back to a teleporter. Let me look at my map. Where can I go next? What has an exclamation point? Okay, it's like you have to go through a lot of mental processing to figure out what your next thing is because the game does not facilitate quest tracking or waypoints. And I think for me, that's like the number one thing I didn't like about the game, where it did feel like that part did feel like a slog, where I felt like there's fun things happening and then I'm going in between the fun. That does get mitigated a bit with you can buy infinite quests in this game. So one infinite quest you get towards the end, mechanical spoilers, is you get XP from just moving. And I'm like, now I don't mind walking around the map. But you get that super late. So I'm like, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like you mentioned, it's not on PlayStation, not on Switch. It is an Xbox exclusive. Fun times for that. On Game Pass, of course, but also on Steam. And so I'm sure it's a time thing, 6 months or a year, and it'll eventually be out on other stuff. But Jeff, I hope you stick with it.
Yeah, I want to.
Okay, good. And
I've enjoyed what I played so far.
Great.
Party pooper like Kyle or anything.
Isn't it? Aren't you just thankful, Kyle, that it's not a roguelike? Maybe
come off as not liking it.
I know.
Surprised how much you loved it. If
You were
anything,
just like, I gotta change people, and then I get all these new abilities. I hate that.
I will say this game has been
some kind of action. I want to avoid that as much as possible in any video game.
It is a very menu heavy game. It is very menu heavy.
Kyle, your mic is such dog.
Yeah. I didn't know what you said though. Like we worked through it together. But one thing I will say is it's been interesting talking to other like critics who, and now the game's out for everybody. So just people playing the game and getting their takes. Because I will say, I wouldn't go as far as say it's a divisive game because it's a little dramatic. But like for me, like it's like, great game, right? It's 4 out of 5 on my scale. I'd give it like an 8 out of 10 on a 10-point scale.
Sure.
But a lot of people are more of like, I've also met some like people that are more in that okay range where they're like, a lot of, people were kind of funny. We're like, oh, it's kind of disappointing. Like I was looking forward to it and I'm not a fan. And I thought they were crazy. Yeah. Like I jumped onto a call, like, to talk to, like we end up talking about it. And I was blown away because I like the game so much and I think it is really good. Again, I see the flaws and I acknowledge them, but I love the game. And like hearing you, Ben, before where you're like, oh, like we have codes, like check it out. It's pretty good. And I was like, oh, Ben, you're like totally right. I'm like, hey, y'all, you got to play it. It's awesome. I'm having a great time. So to me, it's so clearly good, if not great, which I say it's great, that I was kind of shocked when people were like not into it. I was like,
yeah, that seems crazy to me.
It was, and obviously it's all opinions at the end of the day, but I really did enjoy it. And I think a lot of people will. So seems like at least worth trying out based on, I think, general reception.
Oh, big time. And I'm just so thankful that it's not a roguelike. I know roguelikes are good and cool now, but like it is built like it could be an amazing roguelike. And they're like, nope, it's just going to be like a story-based game. I
also went in knowing not a whole lot. Like I remembered seeing like, I'm like, oh yeah, I did see trailers. I like Drinkbox. So I was in on like, I want a code to review or to check it out regardless. But then when I like got it, I was like, oh shoot, was this a roguelike? Please say no, because the How Long to Beat generally is 20 hours. I did it in 17, but I did it co-op, and I'm like, I cannot beat this. I cannot beat roguelikes. Please don't be a roguelike.
Just in general, I'm sure if
the
they
dungeons are procedural though.
But. Yeah, I'm sure if they made a sequel, I bet it would be a roguelike because it feels like
not.
These systems are just tailor-built for it. But hey, Nobody Saves the World is the name of that game, everybody. Hey, Jeffem.
Yes.
Would you mind saying just something beautiful?
You want me to go play it right now, don't you?
I don't know. Sure, let's say that. Would you mind just clapping out though?
All right, whatever. I'm going to change forms into not being here.
Kelsey Lewin.
Hi.
Friend of the show. Hey. You've been on several times. And also on the Deepest Dive for Animal Crossing, but the co-director of the Video Game History Foundation. Thank you for being here, Kelsey.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about some old stuff, and it's like, we should probably reach out to Kelsey. We're talking old handheld RPGs. It seems like a waste not to get you in on this conversation.
My jam.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, you must be contacted all the time just with people like, hey, I'm talking about this retro game or this thing in the game industry that's more than 5 years old. Will you just help us out with it? Is that just a big part of your life now?
Yeah, that happens a lot. But, it happens, and sometimes people are like, well, okay, this game is old, therefore you must be an expert on it. I'm like, that's not really how it works. I've been asked to be on a couple podcasts sometimes where they're like, okay, we're talking about Super Metroid. And I'm like, well, I know some things about the development of that game and stuff, but like, I'm not also a Metroid expert.
Right. I mean, it's kind of, I guess, the equivalent of when we meet somebody and we say that we work in games and they're like, oh, okay, so Roblox. And it's like, well, no, I don't know about
that one.
Yeah, I don't know about the popular games. If you want to talk about Stuntman on PS2, I'm your boy. Here we go. But it's a weird thing that bubbled up where Serial Vasquez, Kyle, and then also you, Kelsey, are all playing through Mother 3, like in this window.
Really?
It's really bizarre. Yeah, because you just said you were playing it, right, Kelsey?
Yeah, I just beat it like, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago. I was playing it over like Christmas time.
That's amazing. And then Kyle, for some reason, you jumped into Mother 3 too?
Yeah, I don't even know. Like, it's always one that I've wanted to play, and I even downloaded the English translation years ago and got it all set up and going. And I was just like being picky about it, and I was like, I want to play this on a handheld. I don't want to play this like on an emulator. I don't want to play it this way. So I bought like someone put it on a cartridge with the English translation, and I bought a Game Boy Advance SP recently to play Golden Sun. So like I'm like about 10 hours into Mother 3 for the first time in my life playing the English translation, which seems very good, this fan translation that was made.
Yeah, and how's the game?
Do you have the latest update of it? Because there was, I don't know, 5 months ago, 6 months ago, something like that. There was like an even later, I think it's 1.3, and I played through 1.2. I didn't play I don't actually know what changed. I just know that there was like another revision that came out.
They're still iterating on this thing? I don't know.
I guess so.
How is it though?
It's good. It's
good.
I mean, there's a lot of things about it that I just didn't know because I'd never looked into the story of Mother 3. Like, it's like much darker than I expected it to be, especially in the first few hours. Like, some bad stuff happens and it's sad. Like, it is legitimately
I genuinely
sad.
cried.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Actually, in the first 10 hours of the game, cried.
This is okay.
I don't know if you did, Kyle. You don't have to say you cried or not, but
yeah,
it's very sad. It's very hard hitting.
You're a monster
stuff.
if you didn't, Kyle, but it's no pressure. It's no big deal either way.
I didn't cry, but I do understand why people would cry, if that makes sense. Like, it is, I think part of it is also, it's just a very happy looking game, and like Earthbound was pretty lighthearted, and to sort of be like sideswiped by this event in the first, 2 hours or something like that, I was like, oh, okay, this is what this game's about. And it then from there, it's kind of about, at least as far as I've gotten, Kelsey has beaten it, I haven't beaten it, but like it seems like it's about the idea of happiness and like what that means to like, what does it mean to be happy? Were you already happy before things changed in your life, and what does that mean? And it's like, it's just not what I expected from the game, but I'm embracing it and really loving it. And then the other thing I didn't know is that Lucas is a twin. I had no idea.
What?
Yeah.
Weird.
And his brother's name, at least in the English translation, is Klaus, Claus, which is just Lucas rearranged.
Which I figured out at the very end of the game, which it doesn't tell you. I just like happened to make that connection at the very end of the game. I'm pretty sure their names are the same in Japanese, because if you break that down into like Japanese letters, you can also still arrange those to those same. It still works.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So we should probably back up a little bit for folks. Mother 3 is the sequel to Earthbound, the Super Nintendo RPG, and it is number 1 on the list of games that people are screaming needs to be localized. It's never been brought to the States, and a fan translation was made years ago. And so you might know Lucas, who's the main protagonist, because of Smash Brothers. Yes, Kyle?
I just wanted to quickly say, one of the reasons that I just finally decided I wanted to like play it is because I've given up on it ever actually being officially released by Nintendo. I've officially assuming it's not going to happen. So had to take matters into my own.
I think that's fair. I was amazed looking into the history of this thing that it came out in 2006, which seems so strangely late for a Game Boy Advance game. And then like the more you dig into this, and I'm sure you're a master of this, Kelsey, but like the more I dug into it, the more it just gets confusing. The idea that they were developing it for Nintendo 64, but then stopped development and then started development again, but said, let's just make it 2D for Game Boy Advance. Like, how often do they stop development midstream and then say, yeah, but let's go from 3D to 2D? Like, if anything, it's the other way.
Yeah, I can't think of another example. I mean, you don't typically at that point you just cancel a game, right? You're like, we've been working on this for years and years, and if it's not going to happen, and if it's not going to release to, find its audience when we release it now, because they got pretty darn far with that 64 version. Like it was so far done that like there have been people at Nintendo who have said like it would be kind of cool just to show this, even though it's not done. It's never going to happen, but like that was the sentiment where it's like it's pretty close, parts of it are pretty done, and then I mean, I'm sure it still had a lot of polish work to do and stuff, but like all of the bones were there, is my understanding. Like it was getting there.
There's footage out there that you can find from 1999 Space World, and it's fun then because you can like line up the shots side by side and see Nintendo's pixelated demake of like that N64 RPG with Mother 3. But yeah, it has become. I wouldn't say it'll never happen. Like it seems.
I would.
Really?
You played it?
No, is it too weird to release? You think nowadays?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into any spoiler territory, obviously, but having played through the whole thing, I just think it's far more trouble for them than it will be worth.
Do you want to shed any light? Is it what's weird about it? What are certain sections like that's so messed up?
I'm scared.
Again, I don't want to like get into too spoilery, but like it handles some themes and subjects in a way that it's changed the way that we handle them in the past like 10 or 15 years. And also there's some things that I think are just kind of too much for Nintendo's image. Like I think it's just not going to happen because they would have to find a way to explain that this thing that fits kind of outside of their image. Not to say that like every Nintendo game is just this bright, happy sunshine and rainbows thing. I mean, even like Breath of the Wild had some, dark undertones, but it's a little bit more than that. I feel like it gets into territory that I don't feel like they would be comfortable treading, especially for like a niche game like this. Like this will not set the world on fire. Like it will sell a lot because people have been anticipating it for a while, but like, I don't know, how many copies did Metroid Dread sell, right? Like
coming up on a million? Right.
And like, that's probably around the realm we're talking about. And is that worth it?
Yeah, but Terry Crews tweeted about it, Kelsey. I mean, everyone's screaming that this needs to happen. But like, I feel like they were testing the waters a couple years ago with that Earthbound Beginnings of releasing the first game in the series on Wii U. And I'd imagine just nobody bought that one because it's, I don't know, maybe they were, it was such a weird move, wasn't it? That they were trying to inch towards that, but everyone's like, yeah, we don't want the prequel. We want the sequel that is supposedly great, not the kind of lesser version of Earthbound that we already played. So I don't know. Maybe you know what? You're more in the know, but I just think in a world where they release Star Fox 2, like never say never. It's still conceivable. And like, I don't know. Do you think Nintendo would really be that scared about like, oh no, people are going to write think pieces about this game is too mature and some things haven't aged well? I think just they'd be so happy with the groundswell of love that they would get by just announcing it rather than intricacies of the plot 3/4 of the way through, right?
I don't think it's a like think piece thing. I think it's like a, if that becomes something that parents catch on to and they're like, oh, Nintendo makes games like this, then maybe they lose some ground in that area. I don't know.
Interesting.
I'm not a literal insider. Like I can't get inside Nintendo's brain and say for sure, but but having played it, I'm like, yeah, no, this is unlikely.
I'm more intrigued now.
I mean, I'm going right where I'm in the game is I'm going to a bar. Get ready to bleep this, Hanson.
You kidding
called
me?
the Titty Boot.
Oh, Kyle, please.
Cannot have that.
Hey, titty is a scientific word.
You don't need to bleep that. Are you taking a note?
I don't know. I guess not. Look, it's in a Nintendo game. I guess it's fair game. It's so bizarre.
I would love to see it like they released. This is a weird thing to point out, but like they released, I think, Looney Tunes like on a Blu-ray recently, like all the old Looney Tunes, and they had this disclaimer from Whoopi Goldberg of all people.
What?
Where she's like, look, yeah, it's like she's like, look, we all love Looney Tunes. Thank you for buying this Blu-ray, but look, there's some stuff in here that's not appropriate anymore. That's racist and sexist, and it's problematic. But we didn't want to censor it. We wanted to have the historical document of Looney Tunes here presented to you. And like, that's what they should do with this. Just get Whoopi Goldberg to come in and like, just introduce it and be like, look, there's some things that are questionable about this, but we want to have it for the archive. And there's a lot of people who will be really excited about it. The other thing is if they release it, no, realistically, probably the majority of people will only play the first hour. So they don't really have to worry about it.
I'm kind of in that camp too. Yeah. I mean, scale of 1 to 10, Kelsey, where are you at for like recommending this thing? If people like throwback RPGs, do you think this is a must?
God, it's a must play.
Okay. Damn it.
Like it's It's really good. Yeah. And I don't know, it's not crazy long. Like most handheld RPGs aren't real JRPG length.
Right.
You know? I wish I knew exactly what my file time was. I was playing it on the DS Lite because I didn't have an analog pocket yet. In hindsight, I maybe should have waited, but I don't know. DS Lite's such a great way to play Game Boy Advance games. If I had to guess, it would be like 25 to 30 hours.
Yeah, how long to beat saying 25, yeah.
Yeah, it's not too bad. And I didn't have to grind much. There's like a little bit I did at the end. And it was a fairly easy, like, this is clearly the grind area kind of thing, you know. So, yeah, not too bad.
Oh, just to talk about it mechanically for a minute.
Yeah.
Like, a couple of things, like no random battles, right? Like all the enemies are on screen, which I love. There's this, I don't know if it was an Earthbound, maybe I've just forgotten, but there actually is a kind of a musical element to it where if you keep tapping the attack button during combat, you do extra damage, which is just like a nice, fun touch. And then also, you can just hold down a button and like your character just sprints in any direction, which is like perfect for this kind of game where you're just tracking long distances because you don't have to hold down the D-pad to travel. You can just let them sprint. And it's like, it's just a bunch of little things like that that make it feel a little bit more modern than Earthbound. You know, It feels like a Game Boy Advance JRPG. And it's more accessible than I expected it to be. And I really like it for that reason.
Yeah,
I think it's interesting that you brought up the sprinting part because I think that's the one part that feels a little old to me. And like maybe we hadn't quite figured out the standard way to sprint in a video game yet. Because I prefer the like hold down B and D-pad thing because you're just more in control that way, right? Like you don't have to, you can stop sprinting at any point without coming to like a screeching halt. But I hadn't thought about it that way. I'm like, yeah, okay, if you just need to like flex your hands for a minute or something and let them run, sure.
Yeah, we were talking on last week's episode, was it? It was the week before, about like that difference in feel between Game Boy Advance RPGs and Super Nintendo RPGs, even though they seem so similar. And somebody on Twitch had a good way of describing it, and I forget their name, I'm sorry. But they said like, yeah, it just feels like there's kind of a Duplo feel to Game Boy Advance RPGs because everything has to be bigger and bolder because of the small screen. And then in the modern era, if you're playing that on something other than the original system, it just has such a cool, big, chunky look. And that's kind of that sea of stars, je ne sais quoi, you know?
Well, and not just the small size of the screen. I think the other part is, if you play something like Kyle, you're playing on an SP, which is much nicer. And I'm playing on a DS Lite, which is much nicer. And the analog pocket is, like the holy grail, like perfection.
Right.
But original Game Boy Advance screens were very dark and like they weren't a very good, clear screen. So when people were making these games to compensate for that, they were using these really neon colors to get a color that ended up not actually being that neon. So like when I watched a little bit of you playing Tomato Adventure, and it's like, that's not actually how that game looks on an original Game Boy. It's not that neon because those screens do so much to like lessen those colors.
But now it looks like it has even more style. It looks like they're trying to melt your eyes out of their skulls with how many colors and just the vibrancy of those games. Yeah, like you mentioned, I lost my mind recently, and there's a game called Tomato Adventure, which is the second game, I believe, from Alpha Dream, which is the studio that went on to make the Mario and Luigi RPG series for Game Boy Advance and all the handhelds there. And they're now bankrupt and out of commission, which is a sad deal. But this is the game that they made right before the first Mario and Luigi game. And it was also never brought to the States. But last year, there was a fan translation of this Tomato Adventure. And so I started streaming it last Thursday, and then I just couldn't stop. And on Sunday, I started streaming it again. And the translator jumped in my chat because I streamed it on that Thursday and I had so many questions about, that's such an interesting decision. Why is this translated this way? Why is this translated this way? And so he jumped in my chat on Sunday, and then he was just there to answer every question about the translation of a Tomato Adventure. And plus, he's played the game like over 50 times. So he just was a living FAQ for every time I got stuck, every time I was like, should I have this attack or this party member? Who do you recommend here? And so I just didn't stop playing. So I streamed it for 10 and a half hours straight on Sunday. And then I finished it off on Monday. So it was like 19 hours to blast through Tomato Adventure, but it is so good. I adored that game. Like, I assume you'd seen it before. Had you ever played it before, Kelsey?
No, I hadn't. I mean, I've seen it several times. I can't remember if I own it actually. But we do like import stuff in my game stores, so I've had it come through the stores several times. I think it's like a well-known, not Mother 3 level, but it's like fairly well-known, infamous, like, this is clearly a good game and we don't have it kind of enigma.
Yes.
People are interested in it. And I've always been, interested in it too, but I had to do Mother 3 first because that's the one that everyone it's like, oh my God, you haven't played it yet.
Totally. And
now I'm going to join that chorus of, oh my God, you haven't played it.
I know. I need to get to Mother 3 now. I'm just going to continue this trend of Game Boy Advance RPGs. But Kyle, I think you would like Tomato Adventure. I know you jumped in the chat real quick, but like the whole, well, there's a lot of things that are interesting about this game. But one of them is that there's no basic attack. All of the attacks in the game are called gimmicks, and they all have different. It's basically a WarioWare RPG where every attack you do has a different bit of timing or tapping or just like a simple puzzle you have to solve. And you get more and more of these gimmicks or attacks as you go. And it sounds, pardon the pun, gimmicky, but like you become so invested in nailing these things. Like I've never been so invested in every attack I do in an RPG because it's always different and it's always these little WarioWare style challenges. And then there's like a meter building up where if you fail, then it resets it. But if you keep going, then you basically get your limit break. And so it's just like there's so much pressure to like, okay, I need to tap this and I cannot mess this up or I need to get this input exactly right. And the game is just this perfect blend. This is from 2002. I think I talked about it before where I like to consider games on a Paper Mario spectrum. The closer the game is to Paper Mario in general, the better the game is. This game is so close. It feels so much like Paper Mario because I love a good comedic RPG. And this game is silly and absurd. There's just weird sequences where, characters are like falling and they bump into each other and then argue about if they bumped into each other. So the game like plays it back in slow motion. Or there's just like they're breaking the fourth wall by talking about like, uh-oh, fight music's coming up. I know what that means. I think the translator, it's not just that I'm partial because they helped me through the entire stream, did a great job as far as I can tell with this. It's pretty literal to the Japanese, to points where it's just a lot of Japanese names and stuff that are still in there. But it's still, so much of the humor is retained and it is so silly and wacky. And the worlds, it's all in like this tomato kingdom. And the people that don't like tomatoes are banished to a town and they're called droppers. And then you're the main character whose name is DeMille, who is in Smash Brothers Ultimate as a spirit, you might remember. So that character at least has officially been localized. What's that, Janet?
I said, who could forget?
Who could forget DeMille from Smash Bros. Ultimate? That one spirit, it's Isabelle wearing the bunny hat. It kind of looks like the weird rabbit character that is the main character in Tomato Adventure. But then you go down this journey, and it, for a lot of it, does not involve tomatoes at all. And every single area you go to is absurd. It's like, okay, here's a toy world. Here's Mayo Town. Here's a sunken ship, but it's all Christmas themed. Okay, here's a hotel that's also an inn. Well, I guess that's the same thing. Here's a hotel, but it's also Alcatraz themed, but then it's Jailhouse Rock themed, and there's a bunch of recording studios in this version of Alcatraz. There's this sequence in this dungeon that is one of the weirdest areas I've ever experienced in a game where it is an art museum. So it's already going to be trippy and weird because there's this whole dungeon themed after an art museum. But then it goes a level beyond that, and you're playing through this dungeon, which is jumping back and forth between REM sleep and different layers of sleep within this art museum. So it becomes like Psychonauts-esque for just imagine an artist's dreams and then you have to try and play through that as a dungeon. It is absolutely absurd, but I really, really love it. The translation is solid, and if you want to, there's ways to get out there and play it, and I really recommend Tomato Adventure if you love throwback RPGs because it is so silly and so lighthearted, and the attacks and keeping up with the timing and evolving those attacks as they go along is just awesome. Or you can watch the whole Let's Play if you're a maniac. It's unlisted on our YouTube channel, so just go to the main channel on our YouTube page and you can find it there. But I definitely want to do something more with it. Like, Kyle, I'm curious to get your input on it because we have like the entire game captured now, right? From that stream. And so I want to do some bonus thing that kind of shows the highlights of this game. Do you have any good content ideas for how to make the most of that?
A highlight reel.
Highlight
where
reel?
You just kind of do what you were just doing, and then but to actually show gameplay with it. Because
Okay.
I want to see what you're talking about. Here are the cool things in this.
Yeah.
By the way, I have a quick game recommendation for you after hearing how much you liked that game.
Yes.
You should check out Mother 3.
Mother
like funny.
3.
You like things that are like funny and have good dialogue and interesting settings. And
Right. Yeah. And I like Game Boy Advance RPG. So you're saying Mother 3 might be in that wheelhouse? Okay. Very interesting. Yeah. I really went down a rabbit hole with Tomato Adventure. I love it. And the game's director, who goes back to working on Super Mario RPG and stuff, sorry for butchering his name, Chihiro Fujioka. He has a fascinating career. Like back in 1999, he released a game called UFO: A Day in the Life. Do you know this one, Kelsey?
Yes. Well, I haven't played that one, but I love the Onion games and Love Delic stuff.
Yes, I had no idea that he worked on this. That this game existed. It's like an absurd. Yes,
yeah.
There we go.
Moon is one of my favorite games of all time. It got a release a couple years ago, finally with an English translation.
Really?
For like, it's on everything now, but at the time I think it was just Switch and maybe PC. It's a weird game. Like I'm not going to recommend it to everybody. It's one of my favorites, but it's also a weird game, and I also kind of recommend you like keep the game facts like kind of over there if you get stuck, because I did a couple times.
It's really great, but I went into it expecting it to be an RPG, but it's much more of like an adventure game that's a parody of RPGs.
Yes.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Really quick, here's a question. How do I play, which I know this is going to, without people going into the spiral, if I wanted to play Mother 3 and Tomato Adventure, how would I do that?
Google around.
What are my options?
Google around and click and download stuff, realistically.
Well, so, I mean, I am a big fan of playing things on at least sort of original, like, it's fine to play things on the computer. I don't, like, personally do as well with just play the emulator on the computer. I like to hold it in my hands and stuff. That being said, I mean, like, I have an EverDrive, so I make legal backups of my games and then download the translation patch and apply it to that. And then I have stuff you could borrow if you want, but
like what's the most like what's the closest to above the board this can be? Because like it's funny, I've never played anything that wasn't in my whole life, any game that wasn't like super officially out there. The closest I got was like my partner has a Raspberry Pi, and like, you know, I picked it up before. I was like, this is an easy way to play. But I'm like, I'll just wait for Nintendo to never port this on their online service.
I'm sorry. I can't be part of this conversation. It's too controversial.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
All right, that's understandable.
Present for these kind of discussions.
I got it.
So, Hans, I'm going to have to clap out. I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay. All right, bye, Kyle. Sarah Pazorski, clapping in. Thanks for being here, Sarah. The queen of illegal activities, we like to call her. I don't know. Okay,
that's true. I was just looking at the Pokemon leaks. I'm a little shell shocked.
I was too. Yeah.
Wait,
oh my God! They massacred my boy.
What is this?
No leak spoilers. I don't.
They massacred my boy.
Interesting.
It's like leaked everywhere.
Ooh, all right. But anyways, yeah, Kelsey, what was your recommendation for Janet's question?
Yeah, so I mean, the actual above the board way to do this, and there is one. I have like a ROM dumper for Game Boy stuff. It's you can borrow mine, but you can also buy them. They're pretty cheap. They're like $30 or $40. You can make a legal copy of the Japanese game, and then you can apply the translation patch to that. Okay. So that is the like actual legal way to do it. There's easier ways, but
yeah,
there's your above
I'm like a gaming prude, so I'm like I'm still on the physical card. You know, I'm going to Target and stuff still. I'm like, I can't be involved in this. You know, all this other stuff. Also, I just don't the technological, like actually even though it's just Googling and downloading stuff, I'm like, I don't know, it doesn't feel right. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think that's fair. And I think that's like honestly the biggest argument for something like Mother 3 happening is like, yeah, a lot of people I think would play it and are excited to play it and like just don't really want to go through the hassle of like having to learn any of that. Like it may not even be a moral. Right. It might not even be like a moral thing for them. It might just be like, that just sounds like more work than downloading a game on the eShop or going to Target or whatever.
Yeah.
And, I mean, there are like, you know, people have put fan translations on carts and sold them. So if you want to just hold a physical cart with all the work done for you, I mean, not the above the board way, but that is a way.
That is a way. Hey,
Like,
Sarah.
someone got paid. Maybe it wasn't the right person, but like they did something. They did work. Now, was the work allowed? That's a different question.
Yeah. Sarah, thank you for being here. I've been meaning to ask you, do you know how this whole thing operates and why this thing exists?
No.
Sarah, you
Tag me in.
yeah, Kelsey, please.
Is it Patreon?
Oh my God. Thank you, Kelsey. That's right. Patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's, everybody. If you enjoyed the show, help support the show. We appreciate it. And we have some big supporters. Not this first one, but we do have some big supporters, I swear. But here's a weird thing out of the gate is, hey, we did an old-fashioned plug swap with the Fire Escape cast. Our dear friends over there, Dan Reichert and Mike Mahardy and Mary Kish, they have their Fire Escape cast podcast. They've been on this show talking about it in a bunch of different ways. But I really enjoy that podcast. It comes out every other week. We recommend you subscribe to it on your favorite podcast app. Give it a whirl. Their ideal situation for this is they wanted it to feel like staying late at bars, closing down bars, and just rambling and talking about games. That is exactly what it feels like to listen to this. Like, if you want to know what it's like to drink at a bar in Minneapolis with Dan Reichert and just beg the time to go faster to hit 2 o'clock so you can get out of that bar because you want to go home, but Dan wants to keep talking about Rocky because he's so excited and he has an endless amount of enthusiasms for games and Rocky and everything under the sun. Fire Escape Cast is your way to go. I definitely recommend checking it out on your favorite podcast app. So thanks to them for plugging MinnMax, and hopefully you return the favor by checking them out. Also, thank you to other folks. I'm talking, of course, about Fantasy Flight Games. They want everybody to know about the Lord of the Rings card game. They have a revised core set, which is out right now. The game's been out and popular for like 10 years, but this is a whole revision with new quality of life improvements, and now it's a great time to jump in. You know, they just released the whole Amazon intro for the new Lord of the Rings TV show, so it's a great time to go back to Middle-earth, and you can check it out with the Lord of the Rings card game, which is a 1 to 4 player co-op experience. You can check that out. Tabletop game. Also, thank you to our dear friends at Diverge. They all say, hello, Bryant and Nick here from Diverge Coffee, wanting to wish you a happy new year. Thank you to all of the awesome MinnMaxers that supported us in 2021. We just want to ask you to please consider checking us out at divergecoffee.com. And if you do, use the promo code MinnMax for 15% off of any order of coffee. We look forward to an amazing year moving forward and hope you think of us when you want coffee. Start your adventure with divergecoffee.com. Also, thank you to the folks at Fixture Gaming. They want everybody to know about the Fixture S1. It is a $35 thingamabob that you put on your Nintendo Switch Pro controller that you can slide the screen onto that so you can play on the go with the best Nintendo Switch Pro controller. That is the Fixture S1. You can get it off Amazon. There is a link below for all that fun stuff. And of course, thank you to the one and only I Am 8-Bit. They want everybody to know about the Persona 25th Anniversary Deluxe Vinyl Box Set. It is beautiful. It is a collection of soundtracks from the entire Persona series. We're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 15-disc box set celebrating the entire history of the entire run. It's housed in an elegant 25th anniversary slipcase. There's also colored vinyl theme to match each Persona game. You can check that all out. You can also go to their wonderful online store where you can buy all of these soundtracks individually or anything else. And if you use the promo code New Year, New Code, no space, you get 10% off everything that's under $100 in I Am 8-Bit's wonderful online store. And because they're very generous, they're giving away a wonderful prize this week to whoever has the best question in the community questions section. This is Manifold Garden on PlayStation 5. They'll ship that out. So thank you to I Am 8-Bit. Help support them. All right, ready for community questions? Great. Everybody's slowly nodding a little bit for the audio listeners. Okay, here we go. Well, you better look alive for this. Chris Galar writes in. He says, howdy, everybody. Microsoft acquiring Activision is obviously the big news of the week. With Kelsey on the show, though, I thought it'd be a perfect time to ask, where do y'all believe this sits in terms of important moments in video game history? In the top 10? Top 100?
I think it might be in the top 10.
Okay.
I think it represents a very large shift that we won't necessarily see or understand the consequences of immediately. Like, this is the biggest acquisition ever. And the acquisitions have only been gaining momentum and becoming larger and larger. So I don't know, maybe top 10 is strong, but like this shift is a top 10 moment, and this might be like the defining one in this shift. If that makes sense.
Right, until our inevitable future when we all have to choose whether we're playing games on an Amazon or a Disney. Like this is step one towards that world.
Yeah, I mean, we've been laying the smaller steps for a while, I think, but this to me feels like oh no, this is really happening.
Yeah,
Things are changing.
Yep, buckle up, everybody. Zach Aaron writes in with a very similar deep, dark question, asking, simple question, what creature from a video game would you adopt as a pet? But wait, Zach says, it comes with the realistic pros and cons that keeping said pet would entail. For instance, you could ride your chocobo around town and that'd be sweet, but you gotta feed it 4 pounds of bird feed a day. Gishel greens, of course, Zach. Pikachu would be super cute and cuddly, but with a high risk of shocking or even electrocuting you in your sleep. That's true. I think Pokemon are out. I feel like we've answered this before for Pokemon. So outside of Pokemon, what kind of freaky
Pokemon
pet?
out?
I don't know. It's too easy.
Because they're so already animals, I think.
They're already...
Well, there are some. There's some that are like just dogs, but they're Pokemon.
Like the keys and stuff. Oh, but Pokemon are out. Okay. I don't like the pros and cons part because it's too realistic.
Yeah, I guess think about it.
If we had to think of the pros and cons part, well, now I feel bad because my first thought was like, I like the cows from Moo Moo Meadows, but I don't want to have to like keep a cow. But like the art design, like in the real world, like they're the cutest like cows in gaming, I think, the Moo Moo Meadows cows.
Whoa,
but I don't want to take care of those.
Cuter than the Harvest Moon cows?
Not cuter than Harvest Moon
Probably
cows.
not, but
This is
all right. The second
down.
top 10 cutest cow in gaming, I think.
Okay.
Yes, I think they're in the top 10 at least. Top 100 if we want to be critical about it. But I also like some of the creatures from Horizon Zero Dawn, but I feel like that's so unethical because they like live off biomass and stuff. So
They
like
would pinch me.
that's not going to work, right? But then there are the new ones made by spoilers for Horizon Zero Dawn. Like I don't know, but they're not as destructive, I guess, as they used to be.
Okay.
Depending.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're choosing kind of, sort of a cow or kind of, sort of a robot T-Rex?
Well, I wouldn't want the robot T-Rex. This is not. It's not cute. It's giant. I would want the. I forgot the name of them. I think they're called grazers or something. They're basically like little deer.
Right.
The ones that have the blaze canisters on their back. I want those
The
because I would
cows
want
of
to like
Horizon
ride
universe.
those. And yeah, the cows of Horizon Zero Dawn. They're the cutest thing in that game, and you can't use them as mounts, which I think is insane. Which chat pointed out, how would you sit on it if they have the blaze canisters? Which I said it's a game, like it's a video game. Are you seriously saying it's unrealistic? The whole thing's unrealistic.
Yeah, let's see. Video game creature. I'd probably go with a tomato. Some sort of like the final boss from Tomato Adventure. Get that freak of nature in there. I don't know.
Would it like start rotting?
I don't look. I didn't really think it through. Somebody else has a better answer for this, right?
Well, okay. I know he specifically was like, well, chocobos would be a bad choice because you got to feed them a lot. But both of my answers are just like large birds I can ride. So that's all I want to do is ride a large bird. That sounds awesome.
Do you think? Do you think it's legal somewhere to like ride an ostrich? Is that just something a specialist can do?
There are ostrich riding. Like that's a thing. I think I might be small enough to like be allowed to ride an ostrich. There's only like one place in the U.S. I think that like allows it, and I don't remember. It's in somewhere that would be really inconvenient for me to go often, like Tennessee or Kentucky or something like that. But I want to go and ride an ostrich because I think I'm probably small enough that I wouldn't hurt an ostrich. But yeah, either a chocobo or like the loftwing or something like that from Zelda.
What is your deal with birds? For people that aren't watching the video version, Kelsey is living in some sort of bird sanctuary with birds flying everywhere. But you've always had them as pets?
I mean, I have one bird.
Oh,
I don't
okay.
have like, I'm not like a crazy bird lady. I just have a bird.
Sorry.
I did have one bird when I was younger too, but haven't had them like my whole life or anything. I don't know. They're cool. They're like, I mean, do you see the appeal of like a cat or a human?
Yeah, I'm a lizard snake guy, but yeah.
They're like small toddler cats that can fly.
I guess.
And they're like as smart.
Cool.
Yeah, they're as smart and interesting as a cat or a toddler, and they can also cause as much trouble as a cat or a toddler, and can fly.
That sounds good.
Pretty sweet.
would you allow us to have a new Patreon goal, which is to fund you to go ride an ostrich and we can film
Yes,
it?
absolutely.
Look, we know it's out of the blue Patreon supporters, but if we can just hit this number, you will see Kelsey on an ostrich and it'll be stupid looking.
Are you gonna come film? Is that the plan?
Yeah, I guess I
Doing
have
like
to.
a Kelsey learns to ride an ostrich documentary series.
Or you could just, we'll strap a GoPro to your head. It'll be like first person ostrich footage. Yeah, I think it's a whole new category. I don't know, Sarah, you're the queen of pets. Where are you going here?
I thought about it long and hard.
Yeah.
And I think the best answer is Palico. Because
Okay.
they're just like self-sufficient cats.
Yeah.
Like they could bring me food. And they could like bring me things. So it's, I don't know. Palico, final answer.
Yeah, and it's true. Like, you never see them take a huge dump or anything, right? So if you never see the animals in this game do that, we just assume that
Well, they're
they don't
cats, right?
defecate.
Go off somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
Wait, we
Dirt
also
to
don't
bury it.
see most of these things eat. So why is that one assumed?
I don't know. I mean, maybe not the cows in Moo Moo Meadows. Maybe they're grazing. I think you see the things in Horizon Zero Dawn. I think you see most of these things eat. I mean, half of Final Fantasy games are you shoving greens down a Chocobo's gullet. So I think it's
See,
up
but
there.
the robots don't defecate, to my knowledge, in Horizon Zero Dawn.
Yeah, they don't have. Okay.
No, because they're robots.
Yeah. Remember,
Just like release it as steam or something. I don't know.
like Metal Gear
Invisible.
Solid
Yeah.
4, I think the robot or the Ray, no, what are they? The Metal Gear geckos, they like excrete oil at a certain point. It's just a stupid scene. So games are silly. Jim Chatterton writes in, says, "Hey everybody, how do you feel your parents shaped your gaming habits? I have a daughter about to turn 1 and I'm starting to think about how to introduce her to games and what rules to put in place when she gets older. I appreciate how my parents handled it. They restricted how much and what I could play, but also encouraged what I enjoyed." That's nice. Yeah, how did your parents influence you all?
My parents, the first thing I ever owned was a Nintendo GameCube, but my dad was like pretty strict about how this was like a family thing and that we were sharing it and it wasn't just mine. And my mom and dad both bought games for it. I got Smash and Animal Crossing, but my mom picked out Wave Race.
So excited. No.
And my dad picked out Star Wars, I think it's Rogue Squad.
Yeah, yep.
And he was like, Sarah, this is a sharing thing. We're going to do this together. This is everybody's. My dad played that game for like 5 minutes, got extremely motion sick, and I don't think he's picked up a game since. And my mom also doesn't want to play, like she didn't play either. So I mean, I knew going into it as like a 5-year-old that this was mine.
Right.
Even though my parents were like, we are sharing this.
You were not 5
this
when
is-
the GameCube came out.
I don't know how old I was. Little. Young.
I'm like, I know we're all young here. I know this is the young crop.
A baby.
Yeah, what were you like? Middle school? No.
But it came out in
2001.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot.
Janet, we're the
what's-
same.
Oh, man.
How
Well,
old were
here's
you when
the
the
thing.
GameCube came out?
I mean, it don't matter how old I was when the GameCube came out because I didn't get it when it came out. Like, I got everything late. So,
Yeah.
like, in my mind, the GameCube came out in 2003. Like, or 4 in my house. Because when I got it, I was like in 4th grade or 3rd grade when we got a GameCube.
Is it not 02 in the US? Am I crazy?
I
Might
think
be
it's
crazy.
I think it's 2001. Look, I would never correct a historian.
So
but
we
I
would be
believe-
in 1st grade. So you would be like 6 or 7. So not too far.
Okay. All right.
Probably.
Maybe I'm crazy. So I started with my dad had a Game Boy, just, an original regular Game Boy.
Yeah.
And he had a baseball game on there that he played occasionally. And then, they all came bundled with Tetris. So it had Tetris. And then I got Pokemon Blue. And and Super Mario Land. And that was kind of like the beginning of my video game journey. And my parents were great because they definitely had rules in place for me where they, I couldn't have more than one home console at a time. So when I wanted the GameCube, I had to give up the N64.
Oh my god.
Until I was in like, I don't know, 8th or 9th grade or something like that. And then they chilled out on it a little bit. And I also had a brother. So it was like, okay, well, I want the PS2, but they want this. Like, we gotta change things a little bit. But they were fairly strict on like how much I could have and how much I could play. But never, not once made me feel weird about like wanting to play video games or the types of video games I wanted to play. I mean, there were things that they were like, that's rated M and or 9 or whatever. But like, So there were like rules, but they were never like, are you sure you want to play that? That one's for boys. That's a boy game. You can't, so I don't know. I was probably like in high school or college before I realized that like, a lot of the reason that like more women I didn't know as many women growing up playing video games was probably because their parents were like, that's not for you. Like, that's not, you don't need to play that, or let your brother play. That's his system. And kind of, maybe not explicitly we're like, that's not for girls, but we're like, this is secondary for you. Like, this is mostly your brother's thing. And if he wants to let you play, then fine. And I never had that. And that's partially because I'm the oldest child, I think, too. But yeah, I really appreciate that, because it almost didn't occur to me until much later in life that like, oh yeah, that's nice. I was able to just explore this in the way I wanted to explore it without someone telling me it's not for me. I mean, the magazines told me it wasn't for me, but it's a different story.
Every
this isn't
ad.
gonna matter because I can't read. So I'm like, I just see there's just pictures.
Yeah, the pictures of like, aren't there some bizarre old like Game Boy ads where it's like just women on beds and like chained
Yeah,
up
I'm like,
or
wow,
something?
I'm gonna be really hot when I grow up. Didn't pan out that way. I was like, oh, I look great. Like, look at me with this. I have all these consoles. I'm like super curvy for some reason. But I'm not 5 feet tall. For me, I really didn't have any big parental impact. My parents were like extremely hands off, probably to a fault, admittedly, now that I'm, older. But my brother was really more the person that had like an impact. And he was definitely more like hands-on in the sense that he's 6 years older than me. So it was very much like at a certain point, he'd be the one watching me and he'd be the one around. And he's the one that like I hung out with. Like my parents didn't really but they worked a good amount. And then when they weren't working, they were tired. And then my dad worked like these hours where he'd leave at like 1 PM when I got like out of school, and he would be gone the whole day. And so I would only kind of see him on his day off where he's like relaxing. So it was a lot of just like me and my brother, and my parents were just around, like there's food and stuff, but we weren't like, it wasn't very hands-on. For consoles, I think my first consoles were probably from my grandma. My parents did eventually, I think, end up buying us consoles, and they'd buy us games. It was a lot of like, you'd get games, and in general, you mostly get your things during holidays. Sometimes you could get stuff like in between, but a lot of like my gaming purchases or like gifts were, okay, for Christmas, I'm going to ask for like these list of 3DS games, and I'll get like some of them. And it was always funny because under the tree, like my parents would always just wrap the objects. So I'm like, this is clearly a 3DS game because it's this. It's a little square. Nothing comes in this square shape except for these games. So yeah, I think other than, they weren't really a big fan of like the more mature stuff. Like they were hesitant of that. Like I remember playing GTA, and like we'd switch the TV channel when my mom would walk by, and like she knew that we were probably like playing something we weren't supposed to, but like she didn't really care. But it was like, just don't drive over hookers in front of me because that's kind of weird. But other than that, it was fine. There wasn't any limit on like how long we could play or anything. Like we also didn't game like insane hours or anything. It wasn't like Halo LAN party level of gaming. It was just, it was what we did. And they were pretty hands off with it and treated it just like any other thing. Like it would have been the same if I asked for like, when I got Techno the dog, they weren't like analyzing it. They're like, this is what you asked for. So sure. Like,
right.
every holiday season or whatever.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, like my parents are not into games at all. My dad will not touch a game. It's really bizarre. Like he's a very nice, friendly guy, but at some point I was trying to get him into Tetris, and he's just like, yeah, I'm going to refuse to even touch that controller. It's like, what? What are you talking about?
Parents are into games, but you can't, my parents are not into games, but I mean, I thought Tetris was like actually universal.
I thought so too, but absolutely not. And I finally...
What about like Dave and Buster's or something? Like would they like...
No.
Like skee-ball or something instead.
Yeah, they're really into Sequence, the board game. If it's not Sequence or Rummikub, they're not interested in general.
I don't know a lot of people that played Rummikub. Rummikub's so good. Underrated. I feel like no one knows what that game is. But
yeah.
You got the tiles, you got the face.
But I'm trying to think of like, it's like I had to beg for consoles. I didn't get one until like the PlayStation. But then I was thinking like, well, they got me an Apple II. It was like our neighbors that we got. So that was a pretty good move on their part really early on, getting me to have an Apple II in the house. So it's like, you know what? I wanted to say they didn't do too much for me, but I guess early on, before I could even ask for it, they put this old thing that had games on it in front of me so I could play, some Winter Olympics game over and over again on some old thing that I didn't even know was old because I had no sense of what new games were. Let's see. Garrett Hullfish writes in, your favorite topic, Sarah. They say, with all the love for Tomatoes and Tomato Adventure, the Game Boy Advance RPG, how do you feel about tomatoes and why do you love/hate them? Feel free to include your favorite tomato dish. Janet, you're with me on loving tomatoes, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I like tomatoes.
Oh, good.
Love
okay.
strong, but yeah. Sarah,
Okay.
not into tomatoes?
I like tomatoes in things, but I don't like just the tomato.
Right.
Well,
Like,
who
if it's
eats
on my
just a
sandwich-
tomato?
Nobody.
I'm
well,
it's out
like
of
if
there.
you, well, like it's like if you have it in a burger. I think it's
Yeah,
what you mean.
I
Yeah.
like, I like red pasta sauce. I like ketchup.
Yeah.
I like tomatoes in things. I like tomatoes plus sugar, I guess is what I'm saying. But like if you put like a slice of tomato on something, it's gone.
Oh,
It
I
adds
see.
nothing.
Okay.
It's just like it's like wet. Do you want to eat something wet? No. Gross.
What? I mean, cereal's wet. Is that gross? They're exactly the same. It's exactly the same situation.
Tomatoes
The
and
same
cereal.
as cereal.
1-to-1.
Yeah, I didn't talk about it somehow during that 19 hours of streaming Tomato Adventure. But like tomatoes were a big part of my life because ever since I could remember, we had out in the woods at my parents' place, they built a hydroponic greenhouse and we grew tomatoes. And so it was like, I don't know, 150 foot long greenhouse. And so like
What life have you been living?
it's really weird. So tomatoes were just everywhere. Like that was my first job is I would put little stickers, like our tomato brand stickers on each tomato before we shipped it out to the store and
You had a
stuff.
tomato
You guys were like, you
brand?
had like a business?
Yeah, Timberlake
I
Select.
thought you were like growing for leisure. Like this is so basically you lived in like The Last of Us
Harvest
2
Moon.
without the apocalypse or all the weed.
Well, I think
It's
you
exactly
can
like
take
that.
care of the moo cows. Sounds
Yeah.
like.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I could totally do that. Yeah. So
Are
we
you
had,
like, so are you,
Little
did you guys
farmer.
have like a farm? Are you like, do you have farm origins? Are you like gonna Stardew Valley your life after MinnMax?
I do have farm origins, but here's the thing. If I said that I grew up on a farm back home, I would get beat up. But in the cities, I can be like, oh yeah, I totally grew up on a farm. Because like 33
So
acres.
you're like a farm poser for like the,
yeah,
you're
'cause, like,
only
farm-
farmy to us city slickers.
We had like a tractor, but we didn't have like big farming equipment and hundreds of acres, which is like really farm living where I come from. But it's like, yeah, I had 33 acres and goats and chickens and asparagus and tomatoes.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
It's wild.
But that said, I didn't really like tomatoes growing up at all, or asparagus. It wasn't until later in life I was like, oh, those things that I was surrounded by as a kid, they're actually kind of good, especially asparagus. So that's why I have a special kinship with Tomato Adventure. It reminds me of my youth, I guess. The greatest tomato adventure of all. Koshimitsu writes in and says, hey, MinnMax, what are some of your favorite pieces of game menu music? Persona 4, Panzer Dragoon, and Jet Grind Radio start menu music are up there for me, and I stayed on Dark Souls' character creation for a long time, just soaking in the vibes. I do love the character creation music in particular. I feel like that's a very specific vibe where you just get it baked into your skull because you spend so much time on that screen. I don't know, Sarah.
I don't know that I can recall a single character creation menu music. Like I've never been like, wow, that's bad or wow, that's good. I just can't. They blend in for me, I guess.
The one that I thought of immediately is cheating, which is South Park Fractured But Whole, because all of the menu music in that game, or like when you're creating a character or adjusting a character, I think they have the song that's from the show, but it's the one that's like dark, 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 and it just keeps ramping up until it's just chaos, and it is the funniest song I think you could ever commit to print. So that jumps out to me, but that's taken from the show and inserted in a game. But I don't know, Sarah, you seemed hot on this one.
Oh, well, I mean, the undefeated champ for me is just the Wii eShop music.
Yeah,
Like I
guess.
would like that played like at my funeral when people come. Like I want to hear like do 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 do. But yeah, that's it. That's the top one for me.
Yeah. Do we know?
It's undefeated.
I know
It's
this
kind
is,
of an undisputed top, actually.
Yeah.
I don't think I can come up with anything better than that.
Yeah, this is putting a historian on the spot. Do we know who composed that track? I think
We do, and I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's one of the like it's like Kazumi Totaka or something like that. I don't remember.
Yep, looks like it's Kazumi Totaka. Hey, Kelsey Lewin, ladies and
all right.
gentlemen. Hell
You
yeah.
won an Astro A40 headset. I don't have that for you, but
Frosted Sherbet writes in and says, hey, last week we and my friends had a Shrek-themed game day called Shrekiary.
Did you play Shrek 2?
They say they played a lot of Shrek games, so I'd
Did they
imagine
play Shrek 2?
Is that like a GameCube game?
Shrek 2 is like the undisputed best Shrek game.
Oh my God, a lot of competition. This got me wondering, what would you all consider to be the worst games you've ever beaten? And why did you stick with it?
Not Shrek 2,
Yeah,
obviously.
anything but Shrek 2.
I don't beat bad games.
What's wrong with you? Why not?
Straight up. I don't. I am too old for that. I'm just like, I don't like this, so I'm not going to continue playing it.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. There's probably some example of like blasting through some old nostalgic game just to see it through. I'm trying to think. I want to say Desert Demolition on Sega Genesis, that Wile E. Coyote game, but I will defend that game by and large. I think it's actually pretty good.
You're never too old to turn something you love into something you hate, I think. And that's what I do a lot here with this career.
Okay.
So I've played a lot of games. I've rolled credits on a lot of games that I thought were bad, so purely for either they're so short and I was streaming them, so I finished them, or reviews. Because when you first start out reviewing games, depending on how you do it, you might be reviewing some stuff, like think of what a smaller outlet that can't get a lot of codes, and then you trickle that down to like the most entry-level writer at a small outlet that can't get a lot. This is my way of saying that I have played Nickelodeon Kart Racers for review, and that is not a good game.
Congratulations.
Candleman, I don't know if I'd call that a bad game, but because I feel like I gave it okay or something.
Candleman?
But Candleman, look it up. It's I think it's I forgot what country it developed from, but it's a platformer where you play as a candle. That one it definitely wasn't good. I don't know if it was bad. That's a little extreme.
It's sitting at very positive on Steam, Janet. I don't know. People love the Candleman.
Y'all got no taste. I don't know what to say.
And just to be clear, we have said it 3 times, so we're in trouble.
Yeah, the White Door, I would say was a bad game. Oh, also 12 Minutes. I think that game was bad, and I just rolled credits on that last year.
Right.
So I often live in the bad at times. I think why I finish it, again, it's usually some content reason, like I'm already in here and like I'm seeing it through just to see it through and get the experience and be part of the discourse for it, or for, in a practical sense, like when I took on Nickelodeon Kart Racers, I'm like, okay, I feel qualified to do this review in terms of kart racing. I want to work on, I did it for the writing and stuff, not because I'm like, wow, I'm so excited for Nickelodeon Kart Racers. Like, I try to just get in as many reviews as I can because I get an extra like $25 or whatever, and I'm only making $500 a month, and my rent is $6, and that math doesn't work. So like, I'll review what comes across the table.
You're so lucky Kyle isn't on the podcast anymore, because I think that was a game mill joint which he works for. He would be livid if you're bashing Nickelodeon Kart Racers on this podcast. This
is how I keep it real with any people who are listening all the time that have made the stuff, and it's like, yeah, I mean, was it god awful? Honestly, no, but I would probably couch it as bad.
Okay, hey, that's fair. Yeah, it's like with Game Informer, I never played a game for Super Replay, I don't think, which was our show where we play through a bunch of old retro games all the way through. But sitting in the room as people are going through these bad old games and like producing the videos for it, like watching Tim Turry, now at PlayStation, go through both the Overblood games, specifically Overblood 2. I went back and watched some of that Super Replay not too long ago. It is so long and it is just an incoherent action game for PlayStation, action survival horror RPG. I don't even know what you would call that thing. But it is just incomprehensible that somebody could sit down and get through it. And somehow Tim did. So hats off to the Ultimate Gaming Champion over there. Salem 111216 writes in and says, "Hey, MinnMax, I like to think I'm pretty good at air hockey. I don't lose when I play people at an arcade. What's an arcade game that you are good at? And what's your favorite memories at an arcade?" Oh boy, there's a lot there. But arcade game that you're good at.
Arcade game not meaning arcade video game?
I assume that would be bundled in, right? It has to be.
Oh, okay.
I think anything at Dave & Buster's,
yeah,
I feel like, right?
Yeah.
I was once really, really good at DDR. I could compete level good at DDR. I am super out of shape now. Like, I don't have my legs don't move that fast anymore. I can still read the notes, I think.
Sight read.
I think I can conceptualize doing it, but my legs don't move fast enough anymore.
That's got to be so bizarre.
It was cool. I was this was when I was 12 through maybe 14, and I would go to the GameWorks where I lived in Texas, and just like I had the home versions too, but there's nothing like practicing on the real thing, you know.
You know what game's better than people would expect is that GameCube exclusive Mario DDR game. That's like a big production. It's actually cool.
I don't like it.
Wait, what? Maybe from your DDR expert, but I booted it up and I was like, oh, this is like a produced Mario game. Like I thought it was just be some cheap Michael Jackson The Experience style cash-in where it's just DDR with Mario songs. But it's like, oh, they actually like rendered out new models of Mario and his friends and stuff.
Okay, like from that perspective, sure. Yeah.
Okay.
It is there's no challenge to that game whatsoever. Like it doesn't even, highest levels don't even get into like medium level DDR play. So
it's DDR for normies.
Yeah.
It was just very boring for me because I was like, oh, this is slow.
But it's called the athletic theme. It's just not athletic enough for you. I understand. That's a problem.
I wish I could do, like, I dreamed of being like that DDR person, but I just can't do it. I don't have the physicality for it. But I remember like as a kid also going to like GameWorks or Dave & Buster's or whatever and seeing like there'd be like those pro level players that would be on the machine like all day because that's like all they do.
Yeah.
And I just like watch them, but like not in a creepy way. But I'd be like, damn man, they're like really good. They're really good. I love
Ronn. I think you could do it. Like you have the cardio.
So too, but I don't know. I mean, I'll try again. Like, and I've never been like the biggest fan of DDR. I like to pump it up more than DDR. The time of the triangles being at the angles, I prefer.
Oh, weird.
But even that, like, I don't know. I just can't. I don't think I have the rhythm enough. Like I'm learning piano now, and like I just don't think I have the sauce. I think for arcade games though, for the question, I feel like everyone thinks they're good at air hockey because that was my thought. But I feel like if I went up against like other people in air hockey, it wouldn't turn out that great. I think I'm good only against the people I like live with and know that I play against all the time. Other than that, yeah, I don't know. I feel like the arcade, it's a lot of, I bounce off stuff pretty quickly. I feel like I'm decent at maybe the game where you have to like throw the ball and you knock back the clowns.
Oh, okay. Knock back the clowns. Yeah.
I know you know what I'm talking about. Don't make me seem crazy then. I know, like you played it.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's solid. God, thinking about DDR a little bit more. I forget how it came up, which came first. But at some point it came up that Kim Wallace over at Game Informer, her fiance, mentioned that he was good at DDR. It was either that or I saw him in shorts. So it was one or the other, but he has the calves of a madman. It's just like a bowling ball on the back of his legs. And I was like, how is that possible? And he's like, it's just DDR. Like I've been playing DDR ever since it came out. And if you play enough of it, your calves just become ridiculous. Like, I'm not asking you to show us your calves, Kelsey, but do you think your body physically changed from playing that much DDR?
When I was playing, yeah. I mean, this is well over a decade ago now that I was like really good at this game. But back then, yeah, I was very buff, like 13-year-old.
It's so amazing that a game can do that. Oh man,
that's the secret. I've always wanted to like, you know, just dreaming, I've looked up how much like the machine, like the pump it up machine costs. Cause like you can buy the game at home, but the mat, like it's not the same, right? It's like a good 10, 20 grand, but I'm like, I don't know. What if I like just didn't have an actual wedding when I grew up and I just bought the machine instead and we could just dance together into eternity? I think that's a better use of the money, probably.
Yeah, they probably have Canon and D, I think, one of those machines, probably. Let's see. Philly Eat Steak says, hey, everybody, and welcome, Kelsey. Do you think there's a specific genre of games that is most responsible for getting people into games? Also, has this changed over time? Probably changed over time. Because for a while, it has to be like platformers and Mario 1, right?
Is Nintendo a genre?
It feels like it.
I was going to say, it's probably like Roblox now.
Yeah.
You know, is video game YouTubers a genre? Because I think that's probably what the actual answer is now.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Do you think I want to agree with the platformer thing, but like what about Tetris? Like
puzzle games. Like a Bejeweled
about
even.
Things that are more like very easy to pick up and learn. I don't know which one does more heavy lifting.
Yeah, my main reference point for this is, what movie is that? There's some Disney movie where like the kid's in the back playing an iPad game and it's just like a match 3 thing. So I just assume that like if you have a toddler and give them an iPad, that's like the first type of game they're probably going to want to play, right? Is just some super babified match 3. Sarah is squinting in a just foul
I just love
manner.
how you said you give a toddler an iPad and they want to play Bejeweled.
Right, I think so,
I think
right?
I'd rather watch YouTube. If I was a toddler, I'd rather watch YouTube on my iPad than play Bejeweled.
Yeah. I
think
guess so.
Kelsey's right that I think for today's generation, it is going to be Roblox. It's going to be more mobile games. Like all the kids lean towards more like Minecraft on phones, Roblox on phones. And then eventually now they're not even graduating to consoles. They're graduating to PCs to play Minecraft and Roblox. So that's what I would say for the generation, like the young kids today.
Yeah. Hey, times are changing. What do y'all like for question of the week? I like the parents shaping our gaming habits one.
That's what I was going to say too, actually.
All right.
Good conversation.
There we go. Jim Chatterton, you won the prize from I Am 8-Bit. That is Manifold Garden on PS5. They will ship out that physical version to you, so congratulations. Now it's time for something that we call Get a Load of This. And Kelsey, zero pressure because I forgot to remind you about this. But do you potentially have one?
I do. Is it okay that I'm like advertising?
Yeah.
Is it okay that it's my own Get a Load of This?
Yeah, it's kind of a double whammy because when we competed in Trivia Tower for All-Stars, you also were competing for yourself again, but that's fine.
Yeah, I know. This is what I do.
You got to do it.
I come on here.
It's for the sake of video game history, so we'll allow it.
Exactly. Get a load of this. The Video Game History Foundation is doing a pretty cool thing at the end of this month. We're getting together a lot of the original staff of Nintendo Power magazine, and they're going to be like talking about what that was like and their experiences for the first time. I mean, some of them have given interviews and stuff, but getting them all kind of in the same virtual room together to share that stuff is going to be, I'm really excited about it. I'm genuinely like, if I wasn't doing this, I would be throwing money at the screen and being being into this, but we are selling tickets for it because it's a fundraiser because we're a charity, but it is also eventually going to be made free to watch and everything because we do want to share it with people. So it's on Eventbrite. I can give you a link, but it is... I wonder how I can say this in a short way. I don't really know. It's on Eventbrite if you search like the Video Game History Foundation or Nintendo Power. And then you also get a free ticket if you join our Patreon. I don't know if that's more or less.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm just advertising it.
No, that's fine.
It's going to be really cool. And there's more guest announcements that are going to come. But Howard Phillips, who you might remember is like the guy with the bow tie from the Howard and Nestor comics and stuff.
Right.
He's a real person. He'll be there. Gail Tilden, who is like basically the one who created Nintendo Power. Leslie Swan, who is their editor-in-chief for a while and also went on to head the Treehouse localization department for a long time. And Jeff Baffis, who wrote a lot of the Nintendo Power guidebooks and wrote for the magazine and that sort of thing too. So
awesome.
It's going to be really cool.
Yeah, that does sound great. There's going to be a link below. Just send me the best link for that, Kelsey, and we'll put it below in the description for everybody. It does sound great.
Thanks for letting me do that.
Oh, of course. Sarah, you got one?
Yeah, get a load of this. On January 25th, you will now be able to buy Final Fantasy XIV again.
Hey, it's a miracle.
Hey!
You can buy the game.
Don't join my server if you do buy it. Stay away from Gilgamesh. It's closed. There's already too many people. Stay away.
All right.
That's all I ask.
Hey, get a load of this. Here's a weird one. Forgive me, everybody. But I'm still going through Mary Tyler Moore's show, which is fantastic. Deep in the 4th season. It's as good as it's ever been. But in an episode recently, there's a character who talked about making out. I was like, that's weird. In the 70s, they had making out, and they called it that. So I looked into the etymology of making out. Janet, you laugh, but do you know? Do you have any guesses?
No, I'm just scared because etymology is always like horrific, where it's like, I'm curious as to what comes next.
It's not that bad. It goes back to the 1930s, and it's one of those things where it's like, oh yeah, of course, once you hear it. But it comes from like to make out like a bandit, as in to succeed. It's like, what a weird evolution of that. Like, made out is like, oh yeah, I
like
succeeded.
Scoring.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's probably that same thing, same vibe. But hey, there we go. History of making out, everybody. Janet, what do you got?
I have get a load of this. This one I'm pulling just because I was obsessed with the way they couched this on Twitter. But the How I Met Your Father premiere came out
Okay.
on Hulu. And the way they couched their like review or like impressions or whatever on Twitter, Polygon did, was it happened to me. I love the How I Met Your Father premiere, which I just think is hilarious. And also kind of what I felt about it. Like I liked it okay. And I'm like, and reading their article, I think was just so interesting in the era of remakes and like resurgences. Like we had like Matrix come back and all these other things. And I think their article was so funny because basically in the beginning of writing it, they were like, this is what it's like to be pandered to. Like I'm the target audience, and they've like kind of captured me with this, and it's kind of messed up, but like I'm kind of enjoying it. Why am I enjoying? And then just them sort of exploring their own. I think there are nostalgia things that will ruin all of us a little bit, and I like the idea of feeling caught in your own biases and not knowing how to handle that. And it's like, that's weird. Like me and my family were talking about, we're huge How I Met Your Mother fans. Like I watched that show, when it aired, like the pilot episode when I was a kid. Like I was there in 4 or something.
Yeah.
And to see it now, I'm like, and then my brother's like, and what sucks is like, now I know too, I'm part of like those meetings they're going to have where they're like, viewers who watched How I Met Your Mother, like look at Edwin's Hulu stuff. He watched How I Met Your Mother the day before, and then the next day he's watching How I Met Your Father. The conversion works. And yeah, it'll happen to us all. So if it hasn't happened to you, it will.
Get ready for it, everybody. In the Discord, Mike Lynch posted something in the Get a Load of This channel, which is apparently that they're making a biopic for Weird Al Yankovic. And it's starring Mr. Harry Potter himself. So get ready for that. Coming to theaters sometime in the future.
We've really been in a week of just consistent news that I don't want.
Yeah?
Like, to follow like the Activision, Microsoft. This Daniel Radcliffe is Weird Al Yankovic. The Tifa Lockhart porn on the Italian Parliament thing also happened.
What was this? What was this?
Ninjas threatened to sue Pokimane. Like, I have been living... Ben, you asked me yesterday, like, what's it like to, do I care about Activision and Microsoft? Like, there's other happening in the world at the same time. Okay, so the Tifa thing.
Yeah, what?
Italian Parliament in session. Right? Somebody's screen sharing. What did they have up? No. Oh, no, is that... porn of everyone's Tifa Lockhart, and apparently it played for like 30 seconds.
What?
Before somebody took it down.
Oh my God.
So.
All right, hey, good times. Hey, plugs, everybody. Kelsey, you already plugged things a little bit, but where should people go if they want to learn more about what you do all day?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Kelsey Lewin, and you can follow the Video Game History Foundation. We're at gamehistory.org, or just go to gamehistory.org. Yeah.
Or listen to the Game History Hour podcast.
Thank you. Thanks, Ben. Yeah. Also, we have a podcast called the Video Game History Hour every week. We talk to some people who either did some video game history work or were living through it themselves, and Ben has been on several times, so yeah.
Yeah, and Daniel Dreyer was just on talking about the history of GTA because of the new No Clip documentary. It is pound for pound the most educational video game podcast out there. Every time I listen, I'm just amazed. And, everybody else is just talking about the weekly news, and they are diving as deep as you can dive into the video game history. So it's a good podcast for nerds, and I say that with all affection. Let's see, on MinnMax's end, we have MinnMax Council, our Patreon exclusive podcast. We're changing up the format a little bit. We'll talk about that more in the future, but it's more of like a fun big group roundtable at this point. And so we have people from the community jumping in. Leo jumped in this week to talk about the Cheaper by the Dozen series. So if you've ever wanted the deepest dive on Cheaper by the Dozen 1 and 2, it's in that episode of MinnMax Council. We also talk about Troy Baker and NFTs. We argue even more about Kingdom Hearts. So check out that podcast by supporting us on Patreon. Janet, what do you got going on?
I was muted. Also, I was so curious about what Sarah brought up. I was like, let me Google an article on this. And then I had to turn off my Google safe search because it wouldn't go through. I was like, why is it? I went to incognito for it. This is crazy. Anyway, wild times on the internet. For me, I just did my review of Nobody Saves the World. I also wrote an article on Wordle as well. I'm trying to write more this year. Yeah. So head over to Pen2Pixels. That's my site. And check out that review. Check out those articles. There's a Twitter account and a bunch of other stuff. So follow along to that.
Sweet. Sarah, what are you streaming these days?
We're finishing up Nier on my Twitch at SarahPods. You can follow on Twitter at SarahPods to see what we'll stream next.
Sweet. And we were going to stream Rainbow Six Extraction, but then I after I got done with the Trivia Tower, I got caught up on 1,000 messages between you and Jeff about it's all melting. It's not working.
Yeah. Jeff couldn't get in. Ubisoft said I wasn't allowed to play by myself.
Yuck. But yeah, you can still tune into MinnMax streams on our Twitch channel, MinnMax Show. Find us on Twitch. We're still streaming every Tuesday and Thursday. So I'll probably be streaming something on Thursday. I'm not exactly sure what. Maybe The Settlers, which is an upcoming Ubisoft game that's kind of that survival simi RTS thing we were just talking about on the bonus podcast, Sarah. So check that out. Also, yeah, we have an interview live on our YouTube channel now, which is with Drinkbox, talking about the development of Nobody Saves the World. So if you like that game, you can check that out. Also, the new episode of Trivia Tower with IGN's Ryan McCaffrey is also live. Any help sharing that's appreciated. And Kelsey, thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. It's fun.
Of course, whenever you want. Maybe we could all get together in the future and talk about some sort of mythical land where a bunch of creatures exist or something. Who can say? Who can say? But hey, thank you to everybody at the Thank You Crew tier over on Patreon. I'm talking about Ted Ryser, DivergeCoffee.com, Fixture Gaming's Fixture S1, I Am 8-Bit, Zachary Pligge, Ludwig Roque, Andrew Uerkwitz, Drew Waranis, Andrew Vala, BeatenDownBrian, PrettyGoodPrinting.com, John Higby, The Lord of the Rings card game, MisterNomer, Jawarhello, Ronn with 2 N's, Steve Bamdad, Clemens Zobel, Purebred number 6, Starkiller, Spider-Dan, Preetham Yarlagadda, Journal 99, and Kris. Thank you so much, everybody. Be good, have fun, let's go.